What is up, Conversations with Creators listeners and watchers? Today's episode is pretty cool. It is the JumpFEST 2018 panel. So it was a parkour gathering of a whole bunch of athletes. And there's a panel, I was on it, of a bunch of different styles of business. So there was a gym owner, a clothing designer, there's obviously me doing video, talking about media. We all talk about business, just kind of tips and tricks for how we've had success teaching the young kiddos from some people that have had some experience. So I really hope you enjoy this JumpFest 2018 panel. I am one of the speakers, and a lot of valuable stuff in here. So enjoy.
I believe Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, said it, which is you can never connect the dots looking forward at what's going to work. Only looking back can you see the path and how all the things that you went through actually lead to where you are.
Start creating every day. Every day. Make something every day, even if it's small. Actually, social media is awesome for this because you can kind of do called micro content. You can make something and put it out and get feedback, and that's how you learn through the practice of doing it. That's literally the best experience you can have. Viewing yourself as a professional and having the professional attitude of your clients come first, you make good work, and you are reliable with what you're going to say. That's like one of the key things for any professional. Just a professional mindset is when you say something, it happens.
You look at clothing companies and they make tons of money. Like some of these massive streetwear brands are bringing in huge amounts of money. But if you want to stay progressive, if you want to keep ordering more stock, if you want to be getting into more retailers, you want to be making more technical clothing, the absolute majority of that money has to go back into the clothing.
We're here to teach positivity, reinforcement, creativity. We're here to teach confidence. We're here to teach community. We're here to teach basically the essence of parkour, as well as the essence of who we were. And we're using parkour as a vessel to do that. So it wasn't like let's open a parkour gym. It's like, let's open a life-helping gym, and we're going to use movement as the tool to do that.
Hey, quick question before we get started. Would you like to win a free piece of clothing from Snowman Films and a 30-minute chat about your creative journey with me? I know that I would love to connect with you, and I know that I would have loved to talk with somebody who had experienced a similar path when I was getting started. So let's make it happen. Here's what you need to do. Subscribe to the Conversations with Creators podcast, rate and review, and share it in just 5 easy steps. First, write a review on your preferred podcasting platform and rate it. 5 stars for good karma. Then, screenshot your review and share it on social media, tagging Snowman Films. Each month, I'll select one random winner to receive a free piece of clothing from our store and a 30-minute virtual coaching call with me. Again, subscribe, write a review, rate the show, screenshot that review, share it on social media, tagging Snowman Films, and get entered into a drawing for that one-on-one virtual session with me and some free swag. Thank you so much for taking the time to leave me a review. I really appreciate you, and I'm excited to see you in our one-on-one virtual call soon. Now, let's dive into today's episode. So the big question is this: how are creators like us, who aren't built for the 9-to-5, for the people who put their passion before them being comfortable, how do we turn that passion into a living that pays the bills and a life that we love? That is the question. This podcast will give you the answers. My name is Noah Mittman, and welcome to Conversations with Creators.
All right, cool. So welcome everybody to the JumpFest Colorado panel discussion that will be hosted on JumpFest University. So the big inspiration for this one is if you've seen NPR, I have a segment called How I Built This. I listen to it every Monday morning. And it really inspires me because it kind of just shows other pioneers and entrepreneurs, and most of the time the guests they have are people who have made it, and then at the end of it they do a segment of someone that's like on their way to becoming like a serial entrepreneurial powerhouse. And so what I've asked everyone here on this panel is to essentially represent kind of the industries that we all think of when we think of parkour, and we can start to see kind of how they interlace and like what career paths ultimately all 5 of these industries could use, what services we're looking for to help Delegate, as well as just we'll kind of wrap up with where we feel we kind of got lucky, but also what we did to prepare for the opportunity when it presented itself. And then also kind of just give some insight as to where I think each of us will kind of, where we think those industries are going to go. So if you're looking for, what's a new, niche market that you may potentially be able to tap into, we might be able to give some idea. Again, I know for me, I'm not going to have a full thought out idea. I just know there's certain services that if they exist, I'd be like, dope. Right. So, and that's ultimately how all of this starts. So what we'll do is we'll go down the line, we'll introduce ourselves and kind of like what industry we'll be primarily representing. We'll kind of go through, like I said, the stories and then kind of the future proofing, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So you can all ask your questions and things of that nature. I have an alarm set for 11, so when that goes off, that will probably be the last question, and we'll start wrapping up. But again, you can always find any of us. We're more than happy to have these conversations. I'm sure everyone up here loves talk and shop, so yeah, that's what we thrive off of. So I am Justin Sheaffer. I am the creator of Tranquil Movement, which is ultimately the umbrella lifestyle brand that I've had for over a decade. And so it's the host company for JumpFEST and JumpFEST University. JumpFEST being the transitionary spaced events for young parkour practitioners to get to mix and mingle week long with professionals and professional parkour athletes, and really get to share the expertise. And so there's a certain experience that JumpFEST University provides for the people here. And the reason why we document and film this is so that essentially when people start writing the history books, we can timestamp where leaders of the community's thought processes were, and so people don't make the same mistakes we do, ultimately. So again, my name is Justin Sheaffer, and I'll hand the mic over to the other Justin.
Hello, beautiful people. I am the other Justin. I don't know if that was for me or just because you're all so beautiful, but I'll take it. Is this too loud? Am I too close to this thing?
No, you're good.
It's all right? Oh, okay, cool. This is actually my first time here, so some of you may have known me because I'm loud and obnoxious and I have this poofy hairball on top of my head. But I run a gym called Firestorm Free Running and Acrobatics in Orange County. We are firmly nestled between all three of the Tempest gyms. And that is how you can find us. We have a pretty big program. We run 9 different sports, everything from parkour to tramp wall, tricking, tumbling, breakdance, aerial silks, ninja warrior. You name it, we try to provide equipment so you can do it. In addition to that, I also run Firestorm. Well, I should say my wife runs Firestorm Talent Entertainment. I just help her with it, and that is kind of our talent agency. So a lot of our premier athletes and the people that get really good in the community, they go out and pretty much all over the country, fly out to different places and do performances, do different events, everything from parkour and stunt work to fire spinning and fire breathing, aerial silks, contortionists, pretty much any unique skill set you have, we find a way to monetize it and find a way to make you some money, whether it's on TV, in movies, YouTube channels, everything to just really, really rich people that want entertainment for their backyard parties to show their friends how cool they are.
Solid. Hi, I am Noah Mittman. I own Snowman Films. Much like Giles, I have a crippling fear of public speaking, so bear with me. So Snowman Films, been in the parkour community for 10 plus years. We've done all of the video marketing for JumpFEST through the years. Except for last year, we kind of branched out a little bit, let some other people have some creative stuff. So I've been a filmmaker for 12 years, started the company 6 years ago, and mixed freelance work and parkour stuff kind of for several years. Then 15 months ago, I had a son, and that kind of changed perspective a little bit. I was in charge of the Flow Gang project last year, and come January or so this year kind of switched over because of having the family and kind of having some responsibility that's greater than myself, switched over to small business marketing in terms of like the primary focus of the company. And we really found a niche. We've grown 8x in the last 4 months, and the company, it's big. It's been delegation, like Giles was talking about, has been my life for the last 2 months. We actually now have 5 or 6 people involved in the company, and it's grown every month, and really excited for where we're going in the future. So small business marketing, and have a lot of parkour experience as well. Noah Mittman with Snowman Films.
Hello. Giles Campbell Longley. I'm glad you're the video guy because you know your stuff compared to me. I was a filmmaker. I now focus on running my brand, which is a clothing brand called the Most Projects, which is focused on obviously making clothing, but also I want to build the brand in a direction that as it grows, I can do more with the kind of the profits and the outreach and everything like this, and try to put on events like this, and just generally try and lead by example and do kind of progressive things within our community. I also sponsor a number of athletes who in their own right are incredibly talented and have helped me grow the brand. And yeah, it's all good. It's all fun.
You're so British. My name is Vinnie Coryell, born and raised in Colorado. I opened a business called Move to Inspire, a gym 4 years ago. We had a brand about 3 years before that. And it's kind of turned into this opportunity to basically use what we have to help character development. So a big focus of the gym that we have right now is our core team. So we kind of foster kids when they're starting in parkour, and then we give them more opportunities to do more things. So there's one group of athletes that we spend probably 10 hours a week with, just training them, helping them, mentoring them, and that's a big focus of Move to Inspire. And then I'm also partnering with Nick Zaleski from Boulder, Colorado, and we're opening up the first youth and special needs parkour gym, and that's going to be the focus of that. So we're super excited about that. And then I also with my wife, we just opened a Christian performing arts company that focuses specifically on working with people. And so we perform with parkour, with dance, written word, musical instruments, and the focus of that is to just build a community and to help people. So our focus is really, really, really on just working with people, building people up, showing them, just where their path is going to lead, and how can we help you to help other people. It's kind of just like that discipleship, furthering, helping more and more and more and more. So that's kind of my role in all this.
Awesome, cool. So the big kind of parkour industry that I guess what I get questions for all the time is events. Go figure. And so I'll kind of start with the need that I saw. Obviously, the why was losing my aunt to breast cancer was the ultimate, the driving force as to why I wanted to create an experience. As far as how the event thing came about is I was doing, obviously going to parkour events. My first actual parkour event was a competition in Germany. So I had competed in parkour before I had ever gone to a jam. But when I went to jams, what I noticed was, and again, this was at a time where if you did any types of flips, that was not okay. You were for sure gonna die, and you need to get out of here type of thing. So flips are not parkour was the big debate at the time, naturally that's going to create kind of a division. It's going to create, for lack of a better word, a segregation within that environment. But instead of just being like, whoa, what's wrong? Like I just kept forcing my way in there, smiling and joking around and just proving that I'm here to have fun and here to help. But I noticed that, of course, whoever you drove up with was essentially who you kind of stuck with, right? Because either you're dependent on for rides, it's like you need to go get food, everyone's kind of sleeping on someone random's floor. At that time, like social media, like Facebook really wasn't a platform to like educate people as to where to go. Like, so there's communication was always a breakdown. So I said, well, when I create an event, I want to make sure that everyone stays in the same place. And I knew that if we provided food, to a certain extent, they would become dependent on us because now it's communal. Right? So the first year, it was important to understand this because I think, again, if this is, your first interaction with JumpFEST or you're kind of new to this, it's easy to interpret as like, oh, it's just always been this epic and awesome. And I think the epicness and the camaraderie has always been there, but, so I was 20 years old when I started putting this together. At the time, I was working a part-time job coaching for, like $8.50 an hour. So effectively I was making $800 a month, had an apartment with 3 roommates. riding my bike 3 miles to the gym and then 3 miles back, all while trying to create this event. So I do want to specify that in the beginning phases, the big theme of sacrifice was definitely a very prominent thing. And also, while being a competitive parkour athlete, signed with WFPF, so I was traveling the world, either competing or doing tours. And in 2010 was my first invite to the Red Bull Art of Motion. That was before Art of Motion was paying for athletes to fly over there, so having to also do that. So again, if you've heard me around camp, like the big and versus or, I'm definitely a big and guy. I'm doing this and this and this and this. And then the next part of that is learning also how to not always be a yes man and learn when to say no. And the hardest part when you're starting a new event is because in this day and age, like, you can kind of shoestring things, but just my biggest recommendation is it's hard to just come out the gate swinging with a price point that's going to effectively do it, like right out the gate. But there are so many permits that I have to apply for. There are so many, conversations with insurance companies that I have to have, and they raise their prices every year. So I'm constantly like in this state of, I gotta kind of figure out what's going on. I think the biggest part where I lucked out is that I lived in Colorado. So, and there's always been extremely talented people in Colorado from all walks of, life in the parkour spectrum. And so that definitely helped push that, but I truly think that you could mimic an event of this caliber and this size anywhere in the U.S. now. I think we're all really well connected, and I think jams are a much more comfortable thing. People understand where they're going. So my biggest recommendation is first, talk to your local government, the Parks and Rec. So you may have noticed, like, no police officers have essentially come and stopped us. It's because we've created the repertoire, we educate them. They know every year I go to them for a noise permit. So when we're at Acacia Park, we can be there till the wee hours of the night, and no one will complain. We go and we educate every single local company, essentially every person we work with on JumpFest with the merchandise, and it's all local vendors. So they really support the parkour event because every year they know that they have a check coming in exchange for their service. And so they've actually been more of the lenient ones of, they tend to give us deals, and so all of a sudden, like, I put an order in for 50 more shirts and they only charge me $50 more. Like, I know they're losing money on that, but they're like, hey, we've been working with you for 8 years, so we'll throw you a deal. So definitely start local. They will start to educate you on what kind of permits and processes need to get involved. As far as insurance, ultimately from the research I've gathered, pretty much all of us in the U.S. at least, if we're using insurance, we're all working with the same underwriter. It's all coming from the same individual or company that can actually write certificates of insurance, depending on who sells it to us. It may be USA Parkour, it may be somebody else, but ultimately we're all kind of going to the same person, which is good, because the more people that get involved with that insurance and the more money that gets put in there and the less claims we have, ultimately that insurance gets cheaper and more affordable for all of us. And I'm sure Justin can touch on that a little bit more in regards to the gym thing. So I have a firm stance that if you go to a parkour event, at least with JumpFest, if you come to JumpFest and you effectively do not do a single jump or a single flip, you got the point. I don't need to tell parkour people to go do parkour. They will. You guys are jumping into pools in here and guys go get trampolines and set up things. So like that should never really be the focus unless that's what you're going after. And then it's like, and then all the marketing pushes towards, when you're here, you're going to throw down. So we're always trying to take the stance of, like, we're here for your personal development, your growth, and my sole purpose each year is to find individuals that are in line with that to help create that experience. So and then as far as the future of JumpFest, tomorrow we will be revealing 2 teaser trailers for the two additional JumpFests that will be happening this year. So I'm nervous and I'm excited. Thank you. But with with that being said, I'm going to hand the mic over to Justin, and he can kind of share his story.
Oh man. Hello again, everybody. So there is just so many avenues I can go and so much to cover. So I'm just going to ramble for a little bit, and hopefully you'll get something worthwhile out of it. I'm really curious. Raise your hand in the audience if you own a gym by any chance. Anybody out there? Yeah. You're not in the audience. Okay, raise your hand if you're a coach of some sort at any level. Holy crap, that's like half of you. That's awesome. That's super duper cool. You guys get to share your knowledge, you get to do something you love, and hopefully you get to make a livable amount of money off of it, shall we say. I'm gonna age myself a little bit here, but just to put Justin down a notch, I started at $8 an hour when I was a coach, so it's pretty cool. Sorry. I was also 13 at the time, so they definitely were paying me minimum wage. My background is I was a dirty gymnast growing up. So I did gymnastics from the age of 6 until I was about 12. Broke my spine when I was 12, so that kind of took me out of competitive gymnastics. Started coaching after that. I did cheer, I did high diving throughout high school and college. I just like to do flips and jump off stuff. It was a lot of fun. I didn't even discover parkour till I was 22 or 23. And for the first year I trained it at a gymnastics gym at open gyms where there was a group of like 8 guys doing these crazy vaults and weird flips that I had never seen before. Remember the first time you guys know who Josh Yaden is? Yeah, he taught me my first pin flip like a decade ago, and I was like, what is this? That's not a flyaway. What are you doing? If you guys know who Andy Lee is, he was the world tricking champion a couple years ago. I met him like a decade ago. I saw him do a cart cork, and I was like, man, that dude's tumbling is so whack. I actually went over to him. I was like, hey man, do you want some help with your round off? And he's like, no, it's called tricking. And I was like, no, it's called bad tumbling. This has been a very unique experience because I came from a very different background. But I just really love doing different flips. And so as I met all these different like trickers and free runners and all this stuff, and my mind went from a very narrow understanding of kind of acrobatics with gymnastics to this much wider, bigger world, and it was so cool and so amazing. And it didn't matter how good you got at anything, you'd be like, I could triple cork, and that's cool, but somebody over here can do like handstand on somebody else's hands. It was just super amazing. And so I started coaching gymnastics at the age of 13, and that kind of moved out to coaching high diving, cheer, tumbling, trampoline, and wall tramp. I got very lucky because I got a really good coach who trained me how to coach when I was very young. A guy that I doubt any of you would know, but his name's Sam Tribble. He's one of the best serial artists in the world, if any of you guys know what serial is. It's like a giant metal hula hoop. This is a guy that is 55, and he can hang upside down on rings and do a reverse muscle up to handstand on rings. Upside down. It's just mind-boggling. Yeah, right? That's what I said when I saw it. I was like, crap, you're in your 50s, you can do that. I'm supposed to be in my prime. It's not even close. But basically, I saw all these amazing people, and the only place that they would get together, because like parkour people will go outside, right? But a lot of tumblers don't go outside. There are those that do, and same thing with trickers. But there's so many different things that you need interesting apparatuses for, and that it's an easy place to meet up is the gym. It's where you go, you meet up, you meet all these new people, and you then decide to go train outside, or you learn something new. It's kind of a communal setting like what Justin's created here. It's all these new people. And so I've been coaching until, at that point, until the age of about 25. I graduated college with an engineering degree. And I got really fat. Because I was sitting in a cubicle all day working on a computer, and I was 230 pounds. I went from being a national champion in a couple sports and a state champion in high diving to 2 years later being 40 pounds overweight and hating my life. Having the opportunity to make a lot more money, but I can tell you the money is not gonna help you then. And it basically made me start having to get into this wider community and start training more. And when I met all these different people doing all these different things, there was a guy who was his second time ever coming to an open gym. He did a front flip off of a tumble track to a mat, and he broke his knee. It wasn't even because he landed wrong. He got his foot kind of stuck in the mat, and he jerked it to try to get it out, broke his own knee. Unfortunately, that gym was not very well run, and they didn't have a waiver form for the guy. They had to settle out of court, and they lost a lot of money, and they had to shut down their open gym program. This was the only adult and teenage training open gym in all of Orange County, if you guys know where that is, between LA and San Diego, which is where I'm from, where my gym is. And because of this, this open gym that was 5 nights a week, this community center kind of, that had about, on the best days, had about 100 people in it. On the worst days, had about 60 people getting together to train every single night, suddenly shut down. And there was no place for all these different people to go. So at that point, I'd already been working on my gym idea a little bit. It took about 2.5 years to get off the ground. Especially, 7 or 8 years ago, if you try to convince people, before Ninja Warrior became huge, before all these things that are well known publicly, if you're like, yeah, so will you please give me $250,000 because I want to create a business where people do flips for a living, and people look at you like you're insane. So it took about 2.5 years to get off the ground. We actually did not get anywhere close to that amount of money, and we had to start our gym with about $30,000, all volunteers. For the first 18 months, I got 3 days off, and I worked 16-hour days, and they were only because I had the flu. But over time, your passion will, if you're passionate about something, that will it's like Bondo. It will just cover all your other little issues and stuff, because people will be attracted to that passion and want to join your team. And I got very lucky that very early on, I got a very strong team of people that believed, and they were willing to work for me for 3 months in our gym for $0, simply for being able to train and run private lessons and stuff. Due to all those beautiful people and about 2 months of sleeping in a foam pit as we built our gym, we got it off the ground. And then over the last 5 years, we went from starting, we got very lucky when we started because I had been coaching in that area at that point already for 15 years. So I was fairly well known in my area, and that got me about 50 to 75 signups within the first month, which allowed us to very quickly pay our bills. And by bills, I mean things like rent, insurance, utilities, not like, hey coaches, here's a bunch of money. It was more like, do we have enough money to buy us all pizza tonight so we have some food? Yeah, okay, that's cool, that's nice, we like eating food. But since then it's grown to where, and I could very well be wrong, so please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for a single gym in the United States, I think we have the largest membership. Right now, we just lost 100 members because of summer and summer sports, and in California, water sports are really big in the summer, but we have about 700 members in our program. We run 160, 65 classes a week. We have 28 coaches. 5 managers, 6 almost full-time office people. It's ridiculous. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, I believe Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, said it, which is you can never connect the dots looking forward and what's going to work. Only looking back can you see the path and how all the things that you went through actually lead to where you are. If I had got a job teaching gymnastics when I was young, if I hadn't broken my spine, I never would have started coaching. I would have kept competing. And if I hadn't started coaching, I wouldn't have learned. If I hadn't met these weird guys doing these vault things that I had never seen before, I wouldn't have been introduced to parkour. That wouldn't have brought me to this wider community. It wouldn't have introduced me to the right people to help me build the gym and give us the money that we needed. And it wouldn't be at a place where I'm lucky enough that I can afford to have 28 people who make their living doing parkour or the acrobatics of their choice. So, yeah, man, if you guys are coaches out there and that's what you want to do in a place you want to get to, just know that it's not fast, but as long as you keep looking for every opportunity. I know, especially if you're not a person who's really into business and you hear the things like marketing and insurance and things like that, you're just like, oh my God, shut up. It's tough, but the sooner you start looking into those things and trying to understand and build your base, not of just friends and of skills like in parkour, but skills in a wider sense in the world, building your knowledge base, always trying to learn. You don't have to just learn in school. You can learn everywhere and from everyone. Everyone sitting around you right now has a superpower. Everyone out here knows something they're really good at that you don't know crap about. And if you had that information, you'd be a better human being overall. So if there's one thing I could leave you with today, it's just talk to people and find out what they're passionate about, because you never know when that thing 5 years from now is going to come back, or that connection is going to come back. and hook you up and help make your dreams a reality.
Network.
Yeah, networking.
I'll go more into networking as well. So I also want to start off with a couple questions. Raise your hand if you are a filmmaker or want to be a filmmaker. Yeah.
Camera, nice.
You're getting there. I still haven't gotten there in my opinion. So it's not a destination. This is kind of the classic saying. It's not a destination. It really is a journey. And the way that you enjoy it is you enjoy the journey. You enjoy every slip, every stumble, every triumph. It is a hard road, like Giles was talking about. This is, if you want to be a professional creative, I kind of put a little list together of like the progress, the kind of evolution that we've gone through and that I've gone through. So starting off, before you kind of get to the professional level, if you're like, I started with just filming parkour videos with friends, just kind of having the camera in my hand, like I'm sure a lot of you do. It's just kind of started with fun and a hobby. And I remember there was a very fateful day it was years ago. Who remembers the video Something Different with Brian Taylor? Anybody? Yeah, a couple people. So way back in the day, we were filming that, and that was the day he came to me and he was like, you understand that you could do this professionally, right? And that was like a little light bulb. It was like, oh, that's an interesting thought. And that was, more than 6 years ago. That was a long time ago. So what it starts with is practice. Start creating every day. Every day. Make something every day, even if it's small. Actually, social media is awesome for this because you can kind of do what's called micro content. You can make something and put it out and get feedback, and that's how you learn through the practice of doing it. That's literally the best experience you can have, is just pick up a camera and try some stuff out. Once you do that for a lot, kind of get a reel together. So a reel is kind of a collection of your favorite shots, your favorite kind of projects. And for me, when I look to hire, I don't care about a resume at all. I literally, people send me resumes, I don't even open the file, I just look at their reel. I'll know within about 30 seconds whether or not I'm going to hire somebody based off of the quality of their work. Because that's really, when it comes down to it, your craft is what's going to, the business side can be taught, your eye and your kind of artistic sense is what gets you going. And that's kind of the first step. So after that, work your ass off and be patient. It's a long process. I was just looking, we were doing some Flow Gang premieres, and I was doing the pre-show, kind of showing a whole bunch of previous work, and I just realized, like, I have over an hour of content just from this year of just stuff that I've shot. Just keep working, keep just grinding away at it and creating, because that's where the experience comes in. Networking. This is probably the single most powerful thing that you can do to move your business forward, move anything forward, is for filmmakers, for creatives, market with both creatives and with business owners. So there's the way that we've built in the past 4 months is I started going to business networking events. I go to 3 a week. It's a collection of business owners in a room, and you kind of do your pitch, you kind of talk to people, you build relationships, because relationships is how you get work. You just like anything else, it's networking. It's friends hire friends. That's kind of how everything works. So network with, so in your city, go on Facebook, go Google it, go ask somebody. Maybe for filmmakers, go to the bigger production companies in town, call them up or go down there and say, hey, what groups are you guys a part of that I could come hang out, or even go to the production company and say, hey, can I hang out a day on set? Just start talking, start building those relationships, because that's how it works. From the ground level all the way up to feature films, like all of the major directors, Tarantino, Scorsese, they all have their own crews that they pretty much use for every project. They'll hire local PAs, local production assistants of like whatever city they're in, but for the most part, they have the team that they trust. That's how you build it, is the people that you know and trust. So once you do that, I love the, Robert Rodriguez kind of had a whole like 10-minute film school. It's basically said, do you have a camera? Do you want to be a filmmaker? Okay, get a business card. Now you're a filmmaker. Now you just need to decide on rates. That's it. So you're a professional. If you can
if you can make a product that's good enough that somebody would be willing to pay for it, you're a professional. Most of you could probably do professional work. I started with a Canon T3i. I ran the business so I got the FS 700 here, but that I got probably 2 years ago, and I was renting it for a couple years. I was running the business for 4 years or so with the T3i, successfully, like paying rent. So it's not about the gear, it's about the eye that you have and what you bring to the table. So starting rates, I'll just tell you, I started at $50 an hour. And for a lot of these, when you start hourly, it may be kind of 2 hours here, 2 hours here. You're not going to maybe not get full days when you start, but it's something. It's viewing yourself as a professional and having the professional attitude of your clients come first, you make good work, and you are reliable with what you're going to say. That's like one of the key things for any professional. Just a professional mindset is when you say something, it happens. And you'd be surprised in a whole bunch of different fields how much that is not the case. The businesses that hang around, the whole most businesses fail before 5 years, it's because of it's hard to keep your word sometimes. You got to work a lot of hours. Justin was joking before, the 40-hour week. I remember my first part-time job. It takes a ton of effort, nights, weekends, whatever it is, because you're committed to your art. So I got this tattoo. This is a lens. This was my commitment many years ago, to only make money as a filmmaker. That was it. I was committed to that, and with that mindset, that's what you have to have. You can't be like, oh, what's plan B? There's no plan B if you really want to make it. You have to put everything you have into this, because that's a level of commitment that actually makes it work. So with that, the mindset part of it, one of my favorite song lyrics from a Bliss and Esso song is, I never win or lose, I only win or learn. So you're going to go through bumps, you're going to go through hard clients to deal with, you're going to have all these changes, you're going to have to kind of deal with this, and it's the mindset of you're going to learn because there's no losing. It's not a possibility. That's the mindset to actually make something work. So the growth that we've experienced in the last 4 months has been going after clients with actual budgets. I was in parkour filmmaking for a long time. I love it. It's a huge passion of mine. But the budgets that I was getting to work with weren't enough to support my family. And when you get the family, it's the mindset changes because you have it's somebody more than yourself. So I really knew that I needed to support them and be there to kind of help out. So going after small businesses, getting in rooms with business owners that have actual budgets to play with. They may not be big. We still do stuff. So it kind of is a good segue into how we price now. So we have our most popular package is a subscription program. You get monthly videos. We have 6-month and year contracts. And with that, we're able to kind of drop prices a little bit to help out with small business budgets. So when we started, our lowest was $300 a month. And when you go to business owners, that's more doable. So really find clients that actually have budgets to pay you. That's the first. Find a market that actually has money. If you're wanting to if money is a goal for you, that's huge. And then again, what Giles was saying yesterday with mentors, and I have 2 business coaches that I see. I'm going to one tomorrow. It's one of the only reasons I'm leaving here is to go see my business coach, because having outside perspective is invaluable, and especially from people that are very successful. That's a huge thing, because you have the way that you think, but somebody that's pure business minded and has run many businesses is going to help you so much. So that is a worthy investment when you have some money to invest. So that's a bit of our journey.
So I've just sat here gaining kind of a lot of information and knowledge from these two, and now I'm feeling a bit kind of blank-headed. So can you just kind of start me off with a tangent to run on?
So what was your main motivation or why for starting Motus?
I think if you didn't hear Justin, he said what was the main motivation behind starting Motus. I think it was a growing interest in
the sort of the fashion side of the parkour sort of industry, or whatever we would call it. It was something that I was getting more interested in, and I could see that there was potential there, and it was far from oversaturated, and it still is far from oversaturated. There's so much room for people to come in and create and make an impression, and I guess it just resonated with me. It excited me, and I was like, well, what's sort of stopping me from doing this? And it's funny, actually, I've always wanted to play guitar. I've always wanted to be in a band, and I'm now getting older and older, and I still can't play guitar, and I'm still not in a band. And I look back at all the times where I kind of had opportunities at school and I never did it. And I'm like, I just remember thinking before I did this, I was like, well, why not? Like, literally, there is no reason why not. Yes, it's a risk. Yes, it's a bit of investment and things, but there's no actual reason why not. And I know that in 5 years' time, I mean, if I hadn't set up Motus sort of 3 years ago, I'd be looking at the sort of growth of the parkour fashion, and I'd be like, damn, like, I could have started then. So yeah, that was kind of the driving force behind it, really. And I guess I'll kind of go into the initial steps and everything. Like, because how many of you here have an interest in potentially starting a brand or have already started a brand? Yeah, so a fair few of you. How many of you actually started a brand already? Yeah, so a good amount. And it's tough, right? Yeah. I think the interesting thing about sort of, I think it's similar across all of these sort of different things, but I think the gym one is maybe the one where you need potentially the biggest. It's the biggest leap. It's the biggest investment. It's maybe the hardest thing to start off. Filmmaking, you can do it individually. Same with starting a brand. There is obviously some level of initial investment, because with a brand, if we're talking about clothing, that means product, which then people use their money in exchange to buy that product. So, I mean, that's one half of the brand, because a huge part of the brand, almost more important in some regards, in regards to so many brands, in fact, is there's some brands that are, the brand itself is more important than the product. I don't know where Motus necessarily sits there, but I like to think that I'm trying to hit both sides, because I want to be trying to put stuff like products out with a decent quality. I don't particularly. Who knows of Antisocial Social Club? The like LA streetwear brand. They print on Gildan hoodies and sell for like $200. And if you've heard about this scandal where they had thousands and thousands of people placing orders and they weren't shipping orders out for months, because this guy started this company and it basically exploded overnight because people like Kanye and things picked it up, and they couldn't grow in time, and they were still taking orders. They were still basically taking all the money but not actually delivering. And people are getting these products and they're like the cheapest garments possible, but they have the screen print on the back that says Antisocial Social Club. But I mean, I could go to a screen printer and make that thing, but it's the fact of, in that regard to the brand, so many people wanted that brand because it was like, if they actually ended up getting the product, which a lot of them didn't, there was a level of exclusivity, and they paid $200 for this hoodie, even though it was awful quality. And brands like that don't typically last. I know for a fact the guy who started that brand is essentially, that was almost the catalyst to gain a load of capital to then do a more serious brand afterwards, which I think he's now in the works if this sort of thing doesn't demolish his career. But things like that are risky. You don't want to just try and create hype around something and not really deliver your promises in regards to product. Because here in parkour, like, we have this opportunity to be making really progressive clothing that genuinely can, not necessarily, I don't think clothing is ever going to improve our abilities, because we kind of all get that. If I was suddenly like, oh, these trousers improve your jump, you'd be like, no. But that being said, like, high quality, durable stuff that's maybe kind of wear resistant, potentially weather resistant, and things like this. There's a lot of expansion there. There's a lot of movement into the sort of tech wear scene that we can go into, and obviously with that comes price point. But I mean, still, no one is making. You mentioned kind of Lululemon. There's like Sweaty Betty. I don't know if you have that out here. It's like my mum talks about Sweaty Betty all the time. It's like a high-end yoga company in the UK. But they make incredible yoga wear, and it's hugely rated because it serves the purpose, and they've kind of dominated that. I say niche, but you guys say something else, don't you? Niche, yeah.
Bad English, sorry.
Yeah. But they've stepped into that and dominated, and their product is really, really good. And behind that, they have a brand that has a solid message, and you can go into their stores and actually learn yoga. You can in their stores you can set up private workshops with yoga instructors if it's like your first kind of step into yoga and you don't feel comfortable going to a class and things. So the brand puts out incredible product, but it also has very strong morals and a good direction behind that. And I think that's like the most important thing. Is there's a lot of people who get their friends together, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this, but you need to be fairly analytical of it. Is it's hard to just get like 5 friends together, put out some YouTube videos, get 1,000 subscribers and be like, let's start selling t-shirts, and you'll get $100 between all of you and buy like 50 t-shirts, and then a few friends might buy them, and then you get a bit of money, but you still got a load of stock sitting there, and then you kind of splurge the money on a new GoPro, and then you're back to stare. It's like square one. It's the business. The business side of the clothing thing, especially in this industry, is a tough one to take seriously at first, because it trickles in, and you really need to go into it thinking like, okay, this is a business. If we're going to sell these shirts, this money is then going to be kept within the company to reinvest. Because you look at clothing companies and they make tons of money. Like some of these massive streetwear brands are bringing in huge amounts of money. But if you want to stay progressive, if you want to keep ordering more stock, if you want to be getting into more retailers, you want to be making more technical clothing, the absolute majority of that money has to go back into the clothing. And you have to set appropriate margins to, three-quarters of that back into clothing, and then the rest of that margin goes into things like sort of marketing, paying salaries, etc. And you have to take that side of the everything seriously, because otherwise you will just destroy yourself very, very early on. But yeah, to sort of go back to the we've got 5 friends, let's make some t-shirts, is you might sell a few initially, and if your team continues to grow, that's great. But I feel like it's not essential, but to have any kind of longevity, you need to be thinking about some form of ethos, some form of direction, just so that because people buy brands, 1, because of the clothing, but 2, because they resonate with the brand. So I have certain brands that I really look up to because they resonate with me, and sometimes I don't like their products, but if I really like their products, I will buy them, and I feel not just like I like the products, but I'm supporting a brand that I like. And you might just connect with some people on YouTube. That is something. They like you. There might be you and your friends just might build up a fan base through your personalities, but you want to always be trying to look to expand on that, I think, because the more you can connect with your audience, the better your brand reception will be. I feel like I've kind of sporadically rambled across some of those things, but we'll cover some stuff in the Q&A, but I'll pass it across to Vinnie.
Quick note about friends hiring friends, Noah. He filmed my wedding, so. So it's the why, right? Boy, okay. So I guess I'll just kind of start a little bit backpedal quite a bit about my personal story real quick, and then how that kind of led into to what I do now. So I have a disease called cystic fibrosis. It's a lung, pancreatic, digestive disease. It is considered a progressive terminal disease. So when I was born, life expectancy was really young. Right now, it's probably about 35. Just had my 26th birthday, so it's kind of like, all right, we're getting there. So when I was younger, I had a lot of, I was sick all the time. Parkour actually helped my health tremendously because I was able to exercise. And what happens in the lungs is basically you have these chloride channels that break down mucus in your lungs, right? So you get sick, and then this mucus produces, and you have it kind of thick in your lungs, and then it gets broken down, right? In cystic fibrosis, it doesn't get broken down. So I have to do airway clearance in order to get that mucus out. And if I don't, it can get built up, and it can create blockages in the lungs. Parts of the lung can die. And it kind of just progresses to the point where you either need a lung transplant or you die. It's, I'm kind of lighthearted about it. Obviously, that's pretty heavy. But I would get lung infections, and then you go into the hospital for 2 weeks, and they have really heavy antibiotics, and they have regimens that you have to stick to. I have daily regimens that I stick to. It takes me about a half hour, 45 minutes to do these regimens. And so that takes up time as well. And so I kind of grew up with this, like always taking care of yourself or else you're going to die. It's like, so that was a focus. So whenever I was in the hospital, there were always people there helping me. Like no matter, it was the nurses, the CNAs, like doctors, they always had such an interest in me as a person, right? In my health and in making sure that I would get out of the hospital and be able to live healthy. And including my mom. My mom has been one of the most influential people in my life because she is so self-sacrificing and unconditionally loving. Like she would skip work for 2-3 weeks and just come to the hospital with me, and it would sacrifice for the family, and everyone was aware of that. And but they were just there for me. And so I grew up with that, and I didn't really realize it until I started doing parkour and started traveling. So I started almost 10 years ago in October, and just like thinking back, I know Noah and Justin, both in the parkour community in Colorado. Like I've known them for 8 or 9 years, so it's crazy to see where it's at right now. But so when I started parkour and started traveling and started getting to these opportunities, because I started when I did, made YouTube videos and content when I did, it started to catch the eye of certain people, and then I got invited to the first Rebel Art of Motion in the U.S., which was in Tampa, and I know Justin did the one in Boston because they had like a dual event, and that kind of just kickstarted this just waterfall of opportunities to be an athlete. So I competed in 5 Rebel Art of Motions total, and then was performing and competing and just kind of doing little side jobs and I was living off that. At 18 years old, when you're making $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month off of traveling spread out throughout the year, it's like, what do you do with that? You just travel more. So I just pretty much reinvested that back into doing more things and visiting more events. And it was an incredible experience, and I'm so thankful that I had that. But through that journey, I was doing it for myself. Like it was like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to travel so that I can do more traveling and have more fun and like just enjoy and appreciate and travel. And I think that's an amazing thing, right? That we all have the opportunity to choose that path. And so I got to this point though, where I'd been doing this for a few years now, and I went on this tour. I was actually traveling for about 3 months straight. I was in LA for the Tempest Pro Takeover, and spent some time up there. I ended up staying there for a month and just kind of hanging out with people, training, and then went to Las Vegas area and actually had a few performances out there. Made some money, and then me and Jeremy Carpenter, Justin Sheaffer, Daniel Arroyo, Pip Anderson. I don't know if any of you know them anymore. We all went. Right? We went on a tour to Europe, and so we spent a month in Europe, and we just traveled. Like the whole idea was that we started at the top of Europe and then went down to through Europe and then back up again. And just spent time teaching workshops, training, having fun. It was all sponsored by WFPF. And through those 3 months of travel, I realized that how many things I was just doing for myself. And pretty much my entire life has been people doing things for me so I can live this life that I was living. And what ended up happening, it's like this, there's just a snap, right? I very much wholeheartedly believe in God. Like I study my Bible. Like I really, like it's such a divine intervention that my life has been. And there was just kind of this moment, and I was praying, and it was like, it's kind of like God was like, you're doing this for yourself. Like, let me take you and let me help you do this for others. And that transition and it kind of just struck my life, and like I pretty much just dropped off the whole. I literally, like, after that trip, I got home and I was like, okay, how can I use what I have just experienced in my life for the last few years, and how can I use that for other people? And it was just like the most dramatic change that I've ever experienced. And I pretty much stopped dropping content. I kind of just fell off the face of the earth when it came to doing parkour stuff. And then I put my time into other people. And so that's what started Move to Inspire the gym. So within, it was a hard process. It took about a year to get in the doors of a space to actually build out. But I came back to Colorado, and I talked to a friend, and I was like, hey man, I know you're interested in this too. Like, let's build a gym. Let's start it. And so I worked with him over the summer, in the mountains in Colorado. We pretty much just like, this is ridiculous. I'm going to share this with you because it's ridiculous. There's these houses in Colorado, okay, like multi-million-dollar homes. I mean, like insane, where they have like carpet that has rabbit tufts in it so that when the air conditioner's blowing, it looks like there's clouds. You're walking on clouds, right? Like ridiculous. I was vacuuming patios, like I was vacuuming concrete patios because they didn't want us to sweep because it would leave streaks. Like, so I was making $16 an hour doing that, and then at the same time, I was just planning out like, how are we going to build this gym? What are we going to do? Like, what is our focus going to be? Where's the money going to come from? What are the things that we don't know? Which was pretty much everything. But I knew that was what I was supposed to do. So, my business partner at the time, we figured it out. We ended up having a couple investors. We started with $20,000. So we really had like we were shoestringing it, right? So we get $20,000, and then we start going to these realtor companies. We're like, hey, we're looking for a space. This is what we're looking for. I mean, at 20, I think I was 20. Yeah, I think it was 21, 22. They're like, yeah, right, all right. They wouldn't even give me the time of day. So if I go and talk to these realtors, they'd be like, yeah, we'll go look at a space. We'll meet you there. We get out of the car. We meet them there for the first time. And, I mean, he was so like, okay, come on, let's go. Like, I need to go. I'm wasting my time right now. Like, many times that happened. And then we would submit the applications and, like, try to go through that process, and they would just get denied because it was considered high risk because we're too young. We don't have enough money, you know, like this. But I'm so glad that all happened because it led us to the place where we're at now, which on the news there was a trampoline park opening up in our town, and they said they had a parkour section. I was like, but we want to do parkour here. Like this is we've been trying to do this for years, and so we went and just talked to them. It was just kind of a conversation like, hey, we've been trying to open a parkour gym for a while. Just want to know what your plan was and if we can get involved with it. And so that's like networking. You know, you just open the door and you have that conversation, and it creates opportunity. So we started talking to them, and they pretty much were like, oh, you are? Cool. What's your plan? Like, you want some space? You can build your own parkour gym here and sublease out some space. And it just kind of like fell into our laps because we walked into the door and asked them the right questions. And so within a month, we were subleasing out a 5,000 square foot space, and we built the gym. And so from that conversation to doors opening was like a month and a half. So that was incredible experience. So yeah. Yeah. And so we opened up in our gym. It was a really small section because we started with such limited capital. We started with the necessities. We pretty much just like took, okay, this is what a parkour gym needs, right? Like this is the bare minimum we can get away with. Let's try and start with that, because generally in your area, at least when we started, people didn't know what parkour was, and so we weren't creating a gym for the market that was there that already had parkour. We were creating a gym for a market that had no idea what was going on. So we were creating a market and telling people what it was and what they needed from it. And how we could help them to progress and be better athletes, better movement people, and then just also this idea that it's, you know, parkour is a tool, right? And for so many things. So kind of our philosophy when we started was that we're here to teach things like specific, I don't know what the right word is for it, specific like attributes. So we're here to teach like positivity, reinforcement, creativity. We're here to teach confidence. We're here to teach community. We're here to teach basically the essence of parkour, as well as the essence of who we were. And we're using parkour as a vessel to do that. So it wasn't like let's open a parkour gym. It's like, let's open a life-helping gym, and we're going to use movement as the tool to do that. In June 27th was our 4th year of business. We've grown every year. Right now we have 5 employees. One of them sitting in the audience right there, my man Victor. And it's kind of just slowly progressed into, we have aerial arts in there now, and we've done like tumbling classes, and we kind of like, there's like cheer that's interested in coming into the building and a few other things. So, the focus has always been the people though. It's always been, how can we help you? How can we help you progress in your life? And so through that, it just kind of turned into now we have a team of kids that we specifically focus on. Like we spend, again, like I said, I think we spend 10 hours with them a week, and we just help foster them and we help mentor them, and we try to do that with as many kids as want to, you know. And I'm starting a youth group there this fall so that we can focus on the kids. And you know, it's such a project of just like that giving back mentality, that when that switch happened for me, that's kind of like the why now. So it started out as like, parkour started out as like, well, what can I get from this and how much can I do for myself with this? And that's what drove me at first. And then when that switch happened, it's like now the why is everyone else that wants something from this. Like how can I help? And this goes for literally anybody, and I haven't had a chance to talk to everybody, but if there's something I can do for you, whether it's a connection, it's a conversation, it's you know, you need to get in touch with somebody else, you have questions, like that's what I want to do with my life, and that's what I'm using these businesses and these structures to do. And now we're opening, again, I said earlier, there's already a youth and special needs focus program in Boulder, but it's out of a gymnastics gym. And so they're limited with their space. They have way too many clients. And I just started talking. Nick and I have been friends. I mean, we've all known Nick Zaleski for 8 years as well. And we just started having conversations. And we decided to go in as partners. And so it's called Superhuman Academy. And now we're like probably less than a year out from getting a space and opening a building. And the focus really is youth and special needs, because that's such an important thing that movement can provide as a catalyst for them to grow and to learn. And we've seen it in so many ways, just through their program and then through some things that we have at our program as well in Junction. And so, yeah, that's kind of the why, and that's you know, and obviously the driving factor behind that for me is just like God working through me and trying to help as many people as I possibly can in this life, and as many people as I can through those business models. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're going to open up for Q&A, but I do kind of want to wrap this kind of all up and just show that, I mean, amazing information you got here, and we're all essentially, I mean, you probably heard, we're all kind of talking about similar things. But so, like, for example, just kind of segue in, like, with the event side. Okay, my relationship with the gym owner is offering a kind of almost a wholesale thing. Say, hey, how do you feel about having a destination summer camp for your gym? And we have a few gyms here that Ninja Brand brought a bunch of people. Vinnie did as well. Giles is going pee. But Freedom in Motion brought a tremendous amount of people. Right, so it's like, look, you know, so I saw that as like, this is a way I can help benefit from not being a gym owner, not having that kind of overhead, but I know the struggles they have, to say, hey, if you can send X amount of people, we'll give you a kind of a wholesale account, and then you can charge whatever you need to charge on your end to make sure you have a van, make sure you have the right staffing, and you know, and you can say, I want to bring 5 kids, okay, well, what does that cost? And so that's been really interesting there, and that's kind of my relationship with that. You know, as far as the video side, it's pretty obvious, like to just document and get this out, like so, and I do my best to just hire people within the parkour community, just because if I have the opportunity to do so, I would love to do it. You know, as far as the clothing brand, like I'm constantly following Modus. They're like one of the only companies in parkour that I have them starred, so that anytime they put something out, I instantly see it. Because I also recognize that if I don't maintain a quality of the shirt, and we hire Brian Prince for the illustration, he's an illustrator who's also a phenomenal stunt man, who's also just, there's no one who hates Brian Prince. If you've ever met him, he's just like the most amazing person. 6'10", you can't miss him. He's an amazing human being, and I know he's here in spirit. But it's like that, and so, you know, I approach him and I say, hey, you know, what would you do with this shirt? Because you have full creative control, and so it's that. And now, if I produce bad quality, people aren't wearing the shirts throughout the year, you know, and so like I'm like, yeah, like let's get the message of it, everything. So I've been very blessed that there's been people to help that, you know. And with Vinnie, like Vinnie's one of the people I call monthly. Sometimes it works, sometimes we're too busy, but just for that same mentorship. Hey, Vinnie, here's something I'm thinking. You know, in your experience, is this working? So we're constantly just feeding off of each other, and understand that these all blend together. So there is this element of being a Renaissance man or woman, whatever. That's just the kind of term. But like another thing that I want to express to it within the crossover. So like a big thing I'm sure a lot of us would love, especially like the event, is something like our own personal kind of, I guess CRM, if you will, like a way to collect money and waivers and things like that. Because I don't have a gym, it doesn't make sense for me to invest in something like a Zen planner or a MindBody. If someone could create something that, like, for a week-long event, I could use it, and maybe it's like a one-time payment, that would be fantastic. As far as clothing and the tech side of it, I've met with people who have shown me that there is almost Kevlar woven fabric that you can weave into clothing. So for example, imagine if you're training for the first time, and parents are like, what about shin guards? Imagine if the fabric itself had that woven in. So the first time you go to hit your shin, that would essentially take the impact, and it probably wouldn't be usable after that. So I don't know what you could do with that, but I thought it was interesting. Imagine if you put that on all of the main points that when we roll, from a sports performance side, it's like when they introduced the foam pit to motocross, everyone's throwing doubles. So I'm like, that's something I'm like, man, I don't know what that would take, but I think that would be really cool. Another one is like, with the Google Glasses, things like that coming out, that tech side. Imagine if you could stand and it had measurements, and it would show in real time, like, this is the distance between this. And like as you're running, it would show how fast you're going. So imagine, like, you now know, I actually need to be running 7.4 miles per hour in order to hit this distance of a jump. It takes away a lot of what parkour is built on, but that's industry, and if that raises the bar to the next level, like, just, I don't know who's techie, but that's when I walk around camp, that's mostly what I hear. So, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot of this in the queue, and I'm sure you have tons of ideas that I'm not even touching on. So, anyone want to ask the first question? I think I did see Tyler's hand first.
So when you were approaching the communities and the different low-level governments for this event and whatnot, and you were saying it took some convincing about like what parkour is, and like I know for a fact in my own trying to look at creating a parkour park in Portland and other things like that, like it starts at that local government, and all of them think that we jump off buildings and do crazy liable things, and so how hard was it to convince them the mentality of parkour and the roots, and that it's really one of the more safer sports and things like that?
Yeah. So at least here in Colorado Springs, the big thing was I looked into what I said. I want to host something at the main park, Acacia Park, right in the center of downtown. And so I just started asking. I said, hey, what does it take to get a permit for your event? And they said, well, X, Y, and Z. You need, the biggest thing is insurance. I was like, okay, so that's the first hurdle I need to tackle. If I don't have insurance, there's no way I'm going to get a permit. And then they give you, generally, Parks and Rec will have a whole protocol as far as what you can and cannot do. So if we're cooking on site, that's a whole other permit. So that's why we don't, it's mostly like bring food in or we heat it, or if you have vendors that are serving alcohol, that's a whole other thing you got to go through. So I just said, okay, what do we have to do? They said, well, when it comes to, I said, what about obstacles? And they said, what do you mean obstacles? I'm like, I don't know, things like obstacle course type deal, just bringing in, some heavy things where people can kind of just be adventurous, kind of like an adventure sport vibe. And they're like, well, as long as it's not staked down to the ground, and as long as we can effectively get it out of there, it's not a permanent structure, then there's no issue with it. And I said, okay, cool. So we expressed that it was a parkour event. Obviously, I really think having the fundraising component before, in that paragraph of that write-up, expressing that this is what it's about, definitely helps sway a lot of their decision. But the protocol here was just don't. Yes.
Were you able to call it parkour, or did you have to weasel your way around the wording a bit?
Not at all. Not at all. No, luckily, because the insurance insured parkour, so we didn't. And also Colorado Springs is pretty progressive. We have one of the largest half pipes that's public. You can go down this massive half pipe downtown. So they've been they're really kind of lenient when it comes to that stuff. And actually, just a side note, there's actually two 15-year-olds here that, this has been on my whiteboard for years, that are opening Colorado's, as far as I know, first parkour park in Manitou. And they use JumpFEST as a reference, as far as here's an event. So they were effectively they were able to show that people will travel to this, people will take advantage of that, and it's actually going to be right next to the Manitou skate park, which I don't know if you saw that, but super awesome. Like that, when they actually told me that during Giles, we had to go team up. They told me that, and I was like, wow, it's amazing. It's really great.
Hey there, fellow creatives. Conversations with Creators dives deep into the minds of successful filmmakers, artists, musicians, and all-around awesome people. We are looking for some kick-ass sponsors to help us keep this show on the road. If you want to reach a tribe of dedicated listeners who are just as passionate about creating as you are, then look no further. Our audience is full of people who appreciate a good laugh and are always on the lookout for new ways to fuel their creativity. So, let's team up and create some magic together. We'll work with you to make sure that your brand is showcased in the best light possible. And who knows, maybe we'll even become lifelong friends. Just imagine, years from now, we'll be reminiscing about the good old days when we first teamed up to take the world by storm. Send us an email at noah@snowmanfilms.net to say hey and get the ball rolling. Now back to the episode.
Hello again. Just one thing on that kind of question that I've noticed is just like when a lot of people will think skateboarding, they immediately think of all the, not only the positives but the negatives as well. Like you were saying, when you tell parkour and they're like, oh, you jump and flip off things and you climb on people's property and all that kind of stuff. What I have noticed because I've had to do a lot of permits for my building or anytime I want to do an outdoor event or various things, and most of the people that you work with at the permit location or with cities or with other governments or even other businesses, they may not know what parkour is, or they have a very slim view of what it is, usually the mainstream view. So what I've noticed works really well is to explain to them what it is using analogies for other sports they already know, and generally things that already have a positive connotation attached to them. So it's kind of actually my running joke at my gym when I introduce myself to somebody, like, what do you do for a living? And I assume if they're over the age of 35, there's a decent chance they're not going to know what parkour is. So I usually try to start with parkour. If they don't know what that is, I go, have you seen American Ninja Warrior? And everybody and their mother loves American Ninja Warrior. And that one has a positive attribute to it because it's not a direct competition. It's people supporting each other and stuff. So I usually start with something like that. If somehow they've missed American Ninja Warrior, I go down to gymnastics, I go down to martial arts gyms, and most people know that martial arts gyms always have codes of conduct. They always have a motto by which they live, and they have very attribute points that are usually very respectful, helpful to the community. So I try to explain to them as it's an acrobatic type thing that runs kind of like Ninja Warrior, where we're all on the same team supporting each other, and has these positive mottos behind it, much like martial arts. So if you use things they already know to kind of build a framework, instead of being like, well, it's a bunch of us and we're going to climb walls and do flips, but we're going to be good and we're going to clean up after ourselves and hopefully no one lands on their head. People generally like, that's cool, goodbye. So using that positive framework and building something in their head instead of letting them kind of figure it out on their own and create something in their head that it isn't has worked really, really well for me.
It's creating content.
Hey, just like creating content.
Context.
Oh, I know. I was trying to be funny, but I think I failed.
What would you guys say is the most unexpected positive experience or thing to come out of your guys' business experiences and stuff, whether it's like an impact on you or others?
You can start first.
So for me,
I'm gonna take a Giles real quick.
That's not even the first trip where going to the toilet has been referred to as a Giles. I have a very small bladder. For me, I initially was like, I don't want to sponsor athletes with the brand until I'm in a position where I can be like, here's a proper monthly salary. But after kind of a year or so, I realized that to really help the exposure of the brand, I needed to sort of bring some guys on board. I am connected to many kind of big names in the sport, but I just try to look kind of to the local scene who are around me. Like Keelan, who lives very close to me, was a guy from my gym, and I was like, I always said to him, like in the early days, like, I want to sponsor you. And these guys kind of naturally kind of came close to me. And regarding the sponsored athletes, that's the one for me where like I've now been in a position where I've been able to because I used to be their age and doing parkour, kind of 15. I used to sit in school, and all I'd wish I could do was just go out training. And like when I was that young, traveling the world, nothing existed. There weren't parkour events. Like there was nothing when I was sort of 13, 14, 15. And like taking someone like Max Barker to America and then to the NAPC, and he ends up podiuming the speed competition, which is some insane feat. It's like, it's so sick for me that I've been like a catalyst of that, just being able to help other people out, and I really want to try and do more of that. And with the size of the brand, I'm obviously limited on how much I can do at the moment, but to have a positive impact in like young people's lives, and specifically that tour we did last year, like the whole incentive of that was basically, I didn't want these guys kind of getting to the end of their kind of 18, they have to go and decide whether or not they want to go to university or get a job and things, and I wanted to just prove to them that there was a solid position for them in this sport if they wanted to pursue it, and be like, look, you guys have already made an impact, you can continue to make an impact. And like, because I mean America has this insane growth of gyms and things, and the communities are just exploding, and I just wanted to show that to them, and being in a position where I could do that was hugely rewarding for myself, because it really felt like I was just helping out a few people and being able to really see it like in their kind of, in their eyes. How was the Giles?
Oh, I feel so much better now. I'm going to refill for my next Giles.
But yeah, that for me is like being able to help out people close to me and really see it help and benefit their lives has been very kind of unexpected, and something that I now really want to do more of.
Piggyback off that, because it's really the same answer. It's the way that we have built successfully with our clients, with the content that we make, is value add, positivity, kind of, you know, what they can add to the world to kind of bring other customers and clients their way. What the surprise has been, so that's kind of what we built the business on, was I really am passionate about spreading positivity, spreading love, spreading kind of helpfulness, and that's what marketing should be, in my opinion. That's how it's actually successful. It's not hate campaigns, it's not negative, it's positive and it's helpful. That's kind of what it's turned into, at least if you're doing it successfully. That's what we try to do with our content, what we put out on social media, in the kind of the vein of Gary Vaynerchuk and Chase Jarvis, really pushing education, pushing value. And the surprise has been, actually in the last couple weeks, I've realized how passionate I am about doing stuff like this, about teaching and helping along the education side and the impact side for the next generation, because especially in America, and it sounds like overseas as well, the education system, the college system, doesn't teach you how to be a professional, and that's a huge gap. So I'm really passionate about teaching creators how to actually be successful, using our success story, which is what I'm still building, as the example. So that's been the kind of surprise, is how passionate I am about spreading that and helping out for the next generation.
Giles' thing is called being a proud dad. We're all proud dads here. I think one of the craziest things for me specifically was when the idea is that you go in and your goal is to help people, right? Like, that's going to inherently happen if you're like, my directive is to help people, and that'll happen. But I think the craziest thing is when it helps someone on a magnitude and things you didn't even imagine that it was going to change in people's lives. Like, I've had parents come up to me and literally in tears because of something that their kid had done that they were never previously able to. They're just like, we don't know what you guys are doing as instructors, as a team, as a group, but our kid is completely different. Like, they believe in themselves. What did you do? How are they like actually, they're going from this angry or like upset or like unmotivated child to someone who believes in themselves. And like, and at our gym, like, I don't know how the culture kind of developed. It's just like the parkour community. You come into our gym, like, you get a hug. Like, you walk in and it's like, hey man, how's it going? Like, everyone's hugging, the kids are hugging, they're like, it's super weird sometimes when you first come in there, but then like you spend some time there, it's like, man, everybody really like they care for each other, they love for each other, and there's nothing like I think I directly did to help create that, but to see that community and to hear parents talk about it and to see them cry, like it's such an emotional thing and that was like one of the biggest surprises. Like I inherently knew we were going to be helping people, but not to the magnitude that it did. So that was pretty surprising to me.
So when creating a brand, what are some of the struggles like you went through? Like for me, if I wanted to create a brand, like I would think of myself like, who am I to like create this brand, and why would people buy it off me? Like, what are some of the struggles you guys went through to like create your brand?
I think we've all kind of been through that. The why me? Why do I deserve to do this? And I think it's everyone has a unique voice and a unique thing that they can add to the world that only they can add. That's what I've really realized, especially with content, because again, the whole nothing is truly new. Everything is some sort of combination of other things. It's your spin that you put on it that makes it unique, that makes it what the world needs. So I think having that mindset and just, you build the confidence as you go, but knowing that you do have a voice and really within yourself wanting to share that voice is why you deserve to start something. It's having a unique idea and running with it.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, just kind of a big thing. Let's see. So I think the hardest thing for me was like the actual dialing down of what that brand entitles, right, or what it means, or encompasses. So when people see that logo, if you're wearing a Tranquil Moon logo or a JumpFEST hat, or whatever, and people see that, it's also like what comes up for them. And so, let's say they start asking a question, they see us all flip, and they say, well, what's JumpFEST? And I say, well, yeah, if you go, I'll explain it. So, well, if you go to jumpfest.events, it's all like a ton of information there, and if you want to get involved next year, like this is where you can go. And then it's my responsibility to make sure that website is completely explains clearly what our mission is, and everything that they witnessed in person is now being backed up on something that's there for life, or as long as I keep paying the subscription for to have it there. And also too, like, you are going to get so many no's. Like, so many people are going to be like, yeah, like whatever, like don't care. You're going to go to networkers, you're going to talk to people, you're going to talk to parents because they love you, just want you to do safe things, right? So yeah, but honestly, like a no is so much better than a maybe. Like the second people are like, yeah, and they're just giving you the runaround, like, because you will be chasing this fantasy. And so, like, when you start having dialogues with people, like, listen to people, like, yeah, they're like, yeah, maybe, yeah, that's cool, yeah, cool. Like, just know, end it there. End it there. Find as many no's as you can, because the no's are going to teach you what the way you're expressing and the pitch you're giving, and you're starting to miss the market you're going after, and yeah, I mean, yeah, you're going to get it. I get it from people who come to the event, and I love it. They're constantly saying, well, I think you could make this change, you can make this change. Granted, they may not even know the logistics. They're just saying, well, like the big one, can you get one more porta potty? Yes, we can get one more porta potty. So it's things like that where the porta potty has nothing to do with the brand, but because I made that change, it's now a better experience overall.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just stick to your guns and make sure that whatever you were saying, like, you were leading by example. Because if you said, here, if you hear the rules of what this company, this brand represent, and you're the first to start breaking those rules, that's what people remember. So.
Thanks.
I think one thing that he said that I don't want anybody to like kind of gloss over is the no's. Holy crap, they're so important. I've met so many people that are like, hey, I want to build a gym, and I've been working on it for like 9 months, and it's just so hard, and they're ready to give up. There's a book by a guy called Ryan Holiday. I don't know if any of you guys know what Stoicism is. It's an ancient philosophical system, but the funny thing is, it lines up perfectly with kind of what parkour is. And the easiest way to describe it is the name of this book. It's called The Obstacle is the Way. If you didn't have an obstacle in front of you in parkour, you're not going to learn how to get over that obstacle. You are not going to grow as a human, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, however you want to look at it. Every time somebody gets in your way and there's a no, every time you try to get a building and it doesn't work, every time you put out a shirt and people crap all over it, every time you try to build your brand and people don't want anything to do with it, that no takes away a huge chunk of stuff that you no longer have to deal with, and you start learning ways to overcome that no. You have to build skill sets. The more negative reinforcement you get from things, the better you're going to be, because you're going to have to widen your skill base to find ways to overcome that no. So love to cherish that crap. When people don't want to work with you, when they put you down, when they don't like your idea, that's just going to make you a better person. You're just going to have to learn another way to do it. And that's part of what all this is. I think everybody up here probably continually learns, right? Even though all of us are like, yes, we'd love to help you and answer questions and mentor you, I guarantee all of us are reading books, listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts. We are learning every single day, so the next time that thing that could be a no comes up, we have 7 different things in our tool belt to overcome that no, to survive that and be better next time. What's up, dude?
So it's kind of like a branding question, and kind of like media. So like on Long Island, like, you know, I've been teaching for a long time, but being able to portray what that almost community value system is like into a like media and almost branding, like how were you able to like get that message across using like creative methods that, you know what I'm saying? It's like I want to be, I'm not a videographer or anything like that, but I've like seen and built what is there, and I want to be able to put that into a brand as a message on top of being able to deliver that with social media. If that makes any sense at all?
I'll be short on this one because I don't even have an Instagram, man. Like, I barely have a Facebook. I have a very talented kid that runs all of my social media, builds my websites, does everything. But I think it's really important to have something to stand for. If you don't have something to stand for, you're just putting a logo on a shirt, you're just putting out a video, you're just doing a thing. So having, I think you used the term earlier, ethos. Was that you? Was that Giles? Somebody used the term ethos, which is basically like your motto, your lifestyle. What do you represent that's bigger than you? And so something my dad always said to me as a child, and you know, it's one of those things, especially if any of you guys out here are like under the age of 20 or whatever, and your parents are always saying the same thing over and over again, and you're like, yeah, I get it, shut up. You will come to find that some of that stuff is actually, the older you get, the more you're like, oh yeah, it's almost like experience matters, and you knew what you were talking about. My dad beat into me, lead by example. So first and foremost, if you want to take that thing, it'll be hard to expand it, but you have to live that example every single day. And I can tell you it is not easy. So that would be my first one. The second one is you need to really define what your culture is, what that ethos is. For Firestorm, we have what we call our 3 pillars of our culture. One of them is community. So it doesn't matter if you come in, I don't care if you're short, fat, tall, I don't care if you're black, white, purple, I don't care if you're gay or straight, I don't care what you do or what you are. If you're willing to come in with an open mind and try to become a member of the community, and you're just going to try to be an awesome person and treat other people well, we'll accept you. So the first one is community. The second one for us is play. We like to have a lot of fun. And if you don't want to have fun, you're going to have a tough time because people are going to be giggling and doing flips around you and having a great time. And the third one is self-improvement. For me, personally, that's the biggest thing in my life. I hate stagnation. It doesn't matter if it's physically or just learning. I have to feel like I'm always improving or at least learning something new. Like a shark, you know, you got to sink or you're going to die. So wait, sink or die? That's not. Ooh, that shark has problems. yeah, that's a bad shark. That's a dead shark. But you have to keep improving. You have to keep that open mindset. So I would say to you, if you're still having trouble with these things, it's time for you to start learning some new skills. No one up here is going to have a magic answer for you, although I bet they'll have some helpful advice. You got to keep doing that, or you have to find somebody that you can trust who knows those things and that you can work with. So at the end of the day, at least for Firestorm, when we try to build that kind of thing, those 3 things come together in we're getting together with friends, that's our community, we're having a lot of fun, that's our play, and we're doing cool stuff, and that's our self-improvement. So if, like for us, it's getting together with your friends and doing awesome stuff. And by living that every day in our gym, that's helped us expand very quickly and helped us expand a brand that allowed us to start going into video and marketing and creating shirts and pants and tees and all that kind of stuff. But if somebody wants to, especially on the social media stuff, 'cause I added that.
Well, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm amazing in social media either, but I've got sort of two things that I feel could be sort of beneficial. Is one thing is I don't know what stage you're at in regards to kind of putting anything out there in marketing, but to create a mission statement that resonates with you and anyone else who is kind of involved in the center of your company, your brand, is very, very important. That mission statement can and will change as things develop. You might kind of look back in 3 years' time and think, okay, we've shifted in that direction. But it's good to have something that it's a sentence or two that you feel can very confidently sum up the direction you want to move in, because that's quite grounding in a way, because you're kind of like at the very base level, you want to do that, and very, very easily you can convey to customers, to other people, whatever you're sort of trying to attract. Is like, that's your core. So that's something that is good to explore, and it might take you weeks or months to really feel like you've nailed it down, maybe even years. Like, I mean, it's taken me kind of a while to really feel like I sort of know how I want to convey it. And the other one is, like I said, I don't know how good the social media of my brand is. I don't know whether or not I actually do the thing that I like to see, but I love it when brands have more of a personal vibe to them. So it's weird, like when you see a soulless Instagram page or a soulless Facebook page or whatever, and it doesn't really feel like there's any personality, and whether or not that personality is the personality of the CEO or someone they have put in charge because that person is good at social media, I don't think it necessarily matters as long as that personality aligns with your mission statement. Because as a customer, somebody viewing from the outside in, that's how easily they can connect with your brand, is they feel like they align with just the wording that you use for Instagram posts or Facebook posts or whatever content you're putting out. If it resonates with them, that's great, and then they instantly feel inclined to kind of take an extra step forward. They're like, oh, I like the vibe of this. So those are sort of two things that I think.
That's literally what I was going to say. Like, videos almost feel slightly bland. There's no true like message that's being portrayed, so there is no emotional attachment to those things. So like almost like the overall, probably you'd be really good at this too, is like, now when you have that, we have a mission statement and all that kind of stuff and value systems, which is good because we have that. It took a long time to form, and as you're saying, it's still changing. But it's like, how do I enable that message and almost look at the video and be like, okay, I am now getting to that message in the video. You know what I mean? Like,
this is perfect for the answer that I have. So, in terms of creating the actual content, saying that I absolutely love, it's a little bit kind of more philosophical, is don't shoot what it looks like, shoot what it feels like. And that's really what I go for. You're shooting for a feeling. So like, prime example for this year, capturing Roland's just full committed belly flop yesterday. That's what this jam feels like. It's community. It's this, this insane, it's people centered. It's personalities. It's who kind of shots that kind of feel like what your mission statement is. That's kind of, all of my favorite videos from kind of starting in the parkour community were the community vibe. The action was cool, but Phil Doyle's Lachey to Wednesday afternoon, like that kind of stuff. Like, it's the vibe of the feeling. So kind of capturing the lifestyle, capturing what you guys do outside of the actual training, the people, the faces, the eyes are the soul, the feeling that you want to portray with that. So that's huge. Really, really keep in mind what the feeling of the shot is every time you're doing it and how to best capture that with what the camera's doing.
And just real quick, because this may answer some other questions and kind of creative ideas. Flip Shack does this where Gretchen works, and also I'm starting to implement it now. It's because social media, it gets very tiring, and it's and it is really hard to convey that. But what I think a lot of gyms should do, or coaches as well, is like if you have $100, sometimes it costs less, but to get some kind of banner or plaque that is in the gym, like the parent seating area or in the bathrooms, where when people are like, they're gonna be sitting down waiting for their kids, like there's stuff for them to read, so that when they go out, they're not like, someone says, well, what's Flip Shack, and there's all these things that you're sitting there reading, and so now the parents are actually accurately explaining what it is and what the service provides. And like so to do kind of what Woodward does, where they mail out pamphlets for kids to like put on the fridge and hang on the wall. It's a constant reminder, hey, don't forget to save up, JumpFest is coming later. So like that's the kind of stuff that we're starting to implement, because it allows me to not have to spend so much time on social media and try to convey only through one medium, because I know for a fact that most of you are here because of word of mouth. Like, it's just you guys going out and telling your friends how good it was. We'll do about 5 more questions. Let's see. We'll do Ryan first. I've seen your hand a few times.
First of all, thank you so very much for this. I have this tendency to get kind of caught in my own head. I take the nose way harder than I should have. And I also had a really toxic mentor relationship with someone that luckily I came out with this business, but it was a very big sacrifice and trade. My question is more about the development of a gym, because it's something that I've wanted for 10 years, and I guess I got a lot of no's and I got a lot of confusion and not sure what directions to go. So what core things would I need to do to make my company look good for a gym, for an investor, or for a bank, so they're more likely to give me a loan so that I can actually do what I love and give up on the job that I don't necessarily hate, but that's slowly eating me alive.
Right. I know Vinnie's probably got a lot to say. Imagine Justin.
So I guess the first thing that I noticed when I started going to realtor companies and like kind of starting that process, they always ask for like specific things, but your baseline should be a business plan. If you don't have a business plan, get one, because that is kind of your outline for what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, what it's going to look like, and again, it's kind of one of those things that looks good on paper. When it starts to happen, that's going to change. And business plans are meant to be flexible, right? Like you can't, if you have a business plan and you're like, nothing on this is happening, we have to figure out how to do this exact, you kind of have to like roll with it and allow it to be flexible. But you have to start with it on paper. You have to have it, like Giles writing things down all the time. I write things down all the time. Like you lists are so important, and basically your business plan is just a giant list for this is the gym. So I think that's like the catalyst that helped us. Like when we first went into a realtor's office, they're like, well, where's your business plan? What kind of do you, and then if you go into investors, you have to know the difference between like an ROI, like a return on investment, a return of investment, things like that. I'd honestly love to sit down and just talk to you about like in person, just because I live super close. I only live like 4 hours away from you. Yeah. So I'd love to like really hash out, but I think for everyone else like that, just kind of that specifically, a business plan is like the starting point to get you to where you want to go.
There is a lot more too.
Yes, that's a very broad question. For me, I shopped around at a lot of banks in the beginning trying to get money. And just like the joke I was making about it earlier, trying to convince them, even with a solid business plan. And at that point, when I went in, I'd been coaching for 13 years, and so I thought that would give me a lot of credence, and I was wrong. Trying to convince them to let you do, ninja flips and stuff for a living, and teaching that is very difficult. So the thing that made the biggest difference for me and getting myself a mentor, and then that mentor and convincing him out over the course of 2 years to fund my gym, was giving him comparables. And that's something you'll hear from your realtors a lot. When you want to go someplace and you're like, I don't think it's worth this amount of money, I should only be paying this amount, they're going to want to see other similar facilities that go for a similar rate to compare them against. So what I did with my guy was I took him to all of the best, biggest, most profitable gymnastics gyms around. I would have loved to take him to parkour gyms, but other than Tempest Valley, the first one had just opened a few months beforehand, they didn't really exist. So I had to explain to him. I took him to the gymnastics gyms that I worked at. I took him to other gymnastics gyms that had parkour programs. I found out when their biggest and most profitable and packed summer camp of the year was, and I took him during that time. So he would walk in and see 100 kids going in. And in his mind, he's looking and he's doing the math in his head. If they're paying $325 per summer camp, there's 100 kids here. Oh my God, that's $32,500. Yeah. Oh. So he's able to do the math very quickly and realize this might actually be a good investment. The other thing that worked well with that comparable was showing them that what your target market is. So by taking him to gymnastics gyms, I say, look around at this. What do you see here? Like, how many boys do you see? And he's like, not a lot of boys. I'm like, yeah, you see about 85-90% girls. It's a very female-dominated sport. All of them have brothers. Where are those brothers? Where are all the boys? Well, their parents, after they dropped their daughter off at gymnastics, and obviously I was a male gymnast, so it's not like it's all girls or all boys, but I'm using it as a very wide painted brush here. Those boys have to then be driven by the parents over to soccer practice or football or baseball or whatever, karate, whatever they're doing. And that's how, with my gym, I convinced my guy, I want to be a one-stop shop. I'm offering gymnastics, I'm offering parkour, I'm offering trampoline, tricking, breakdance, tumbling. But by showing him that there's a whole nother market there that's being ignored and that there's an advantage in this comparable. Not only is gymnastics doing so well, but imagine if we could have all the boys that could be there, but now we also offer all these other sports, so we get the boys and the girls. I have a family that has 11 kids, and they all take classes at my gym. Those parents are so stoked because before my gym, they had to go to 7 different sports between their 11 kids. Now they bring them all in, and it's one-stop shopping for the whole family. The dad even takes classes. I have, not even exaggerating, I probably have at least a dozen families that have 5 kids or more that all come to my place with boys and girls simply because we have the wide variety of options. So finding yourself something that you can compare it to show people this is similar, but I'm going to put a twist on it, and that's what's going to allow me not to directly compete against these big guys, but to get the market that they're missing or even steal a bit of a share is it made the biggest difference for me in that kind of a thing. Because when I went to a bank, it was who was saying there's nothing worse than somebody saying kind of like maybe. Is that you? Yeah. I went, oh God, I wasted like a year going to banks like, oh, this is really cool. I do my guy there. I do CrossFit, so this is a really cool idea. Let's talk about it, and I'll shop it around to our guys and stuff. Oh my God, I wasted so much of my life. Don't do that. Yeah.
But I think another side that is important, especially with going for the investor and then kind of laying down the foundation of how your organization is going to run, retain as much ownership of it as you possibly can. The second you have, like, let's say your gym makes $500,000, so that's how much it brings in, and that's not going to happen in year 5, right? Yeah. Let's say you have $21,000 plus monthly expenses overhead, right? So you're already now eating he's at $50,000. So you're already eating so much of that overall revenue. And granted, you can use things to like help it pay off, your phone or your internet because you're also working from home slightly. Like there's ways to do that. But at the end, let's say, I know gym owners that, bring in $500,000 and the salary they write themselves is only $12,000 for the year. Now, if you have 2-3 owners and they all want the same benefits, they all want to write off their phone, they all want to write off their internet, not a lot of money. And so when you're approaching investors, and if that's what you're presenting, the first question they're going to ask is how many people are involved? How much ownership do you have? And if you're like, oh, like my uncle, my entire parkour community, we all own like 27%, whatever it is, like they're going to walk away because they're like, okay, yeah, exactly. They're like, exactly. I would never make return on investment in this. And so I don't know the situation you have, but if it's an investor, I would always make sure that there's a clause in there that allows you to buy them out at a step, maybe at an interest rate, but yeah, because like I think the biggest way for gyms to expand would be ultimately a franchise, and so yeah, if you just have a ton of owners, like eventually you're just going to end up having to buy out people, and it's like now you have all these hurdles because people always fall off. As soon as someone is an owner, sometimes that's all they wanted was that I can put that on my resume. I feel good. But then you're like, hey, you want to stay up till 4 and help me crank out these spreadsheets? And they're like, nah, dude, I gotta go train. And so, or whatever it is, they're like, no, like I gotta, yeah. So just be extremely mindful of that. I've seen it eat a lot of gyms away. Yes, let's see, Jacob.
So I'm hearing everyone say it in a couple different ways, but just to sort of like focus it. Because I know you're all like, just being an entrepreneur in the first point, you have to be sort of like a type A or like willing to go through whatever to get something done. How and when do you decide what to outsource? And what's sort of the process of how you go about doing that? Being someone who's like, I have to stay up till 4 and like get this done. Or like, I'm 18 and I'm trying to start this gym. No. Like, where are you able to actually create that process? 'Cause it's really easy to just say, you'll feel it out. Or like, oh, it'll happen. Like, so if you could take, each one of you could take like a slight time.
Yeah, so I'll start, we'll just pass it down. It sounds like this is a hot topic. So for me personally, I think when you're starting a business and a brand, it's something so personal and so close to you that it's your infant, it's your child. Like if you're gonna open a gym, it's at minimum 10 years before you probably realistically could sell that to somebody else and feel confident leading that. And so for me, I think that there's definitely a trend where I am a huge advocate of valuing yourself and valuing your work. I think like my only gripe with like people like Gary Vaynerchuk is they're really good at hyping people up, but also it's like, so now all of a sudden, like, I'm worth $150 an hour, but I've literally done nothing. So I come in with this expectation of like, and this is kind of like that millennial thing, whatever, but it's like, so when it comes to outsourcing, I have a lot of people who are like, well, I'm worth this much, da-da-da-da. I'm like, cool. Where's your work? Where's your credentials? Like, you haven't given me anything to trust the end product as opposed to that. And so that's been a really hard relationship, and I know once we open new divisions here at JumpFEST, like, balls get dropped all the time, but I have to go in prepared for that. So for me, it's really not about staying up till 4 because I don't do that anymore. But it's like I am really skilled and really talented at many things, and also it's just because it's it's a unique situation with this event because it's 1 week out of the year. I can't put people on retainer. I can't put people on salary. Like I have to be really selective with what I want. So like for example, to get Giles out here, right? It's a new expense. It's an expense we didn't have, but once we do it overnight, 25 people register. So it's like I have to like, okay, what is it that people are wanting versus like what do I want? Like obviously I would love to have a team of 7 people full time that are just handling all this stuff for me, but still at this current moment it's just not realistic. So it really is a lot of like here's the best I can do, and then people being like, cool, I can help out with that. Yeah, and then slowly, I'm always trying to grow, but it's like my own dream, because I'm very visionary and idealistic, and so I tend to be really optimistic, and I'm victim as well of being that like, yeah, maybe guy, and that's something I'm aware of more so now, and I'm really trying to step back from that. But yeah, for me, it's really going to be a long process, and I'm sure they have a bunch of insight.
Oh man, when to outsource? That's a tough one at the beginning. I think it's the first thing you have to keep in mind is that as soon as you do it, no one is ever going to do it as good as you and the way that you want. Because everyone is unique and they're not going to have your background, and it's your baby, so it's really, really hard to do and commit. I think there's a couple things that are really important. Number one, you start looking at the things that you do that don't add additional value to your company. What are the things? So like for me, one of the first things I started doing was I started finding people that couldn't afford our memberships but really wanted to be there, and I put them on filing, helping out with the office, cleaning the restrooms, all things that I originally did. I would never ask somebody to do something that I myself would not do, and I think that's really important with the leading by example thing. But the first thing you start outsourcing are the things that are not going to add value, because you can only do so much for your company, or not so much. Sorry, there are things that only you can do, being the leader. Anybody can clean the bathroom. Anybody can file the stuff. So the sooner you can get those things off your plate to refocus is really good, especially the cheaper things like that, paying a cleaning service or something. The next thing for me personally when I did it was I started finding people that could do certain jobs at the gym and that had a passion for it or were better than me at it. And that one was really hard because even like letting go of those things, even if you don't really want to do them, you're always so afraid of how good of a job somebody else is going to do. Or will they put in the same amount of effort? Will they put in the same degree of work? So for me, like I was talking about earlier, like I'm just not a social media guy. So that one was at least easy for me. I outsourced and I got myself a really talented social media guy to run all that kind of stuff. But for me, I've been coaching since the age of 13. I'm 32. At the end of this year, I'm going to be coaching for 20 years. Like, that's insane to me. I'll be coaching for 20 years. So giving up the coaching, I barely coach anymore. I'll go out and do like one-on-one stuff and I'll help out and I'll take classes when somebody's not there. But going from being a full-time coach from childhood all the way through college and then suddenly having to have all these other coaches run my program, when not to talk any crap on any of them, because a lot of them are very amazing, I don't believe any of them are as good of a coach as me. A lot of them are in a lot of different areas and they do things better than me, but it was so hard for me to give that thing up. So what I think is really important is when you realize something's getting too big for you, you have to bring people in and start mentoring them, and you have to start creating a system with like who is it? Yeah, you were talking about, Giles was talking about before. You got to have those check boxes. Every single day you got to have that list of what are the important things that you need that person to learn, and you need to slowly start handing off things. And the other thing that probably a dozen of you have already had conversations with me about, though, are your accounting. Because you can start handing off things, but if you don't have the money to back it up, everything's going to crash and burn. The biggest thing is you can never run out of money, or you will die. So take your time, make sure you can afford it. First, get rid of the things that are not important and they're eating up your time, especially if you can do a trade for them. Bartering is awesome. After that, start bringing in people who can do a better job than you, but that you can afford. And then eventually, if you're going to lead this company, a lot of the things that you like to do, you're going to have to start giving up, even though you might be the best at it. And so you have to put a system in place in a program to start slowly training these new people and bringing them in. And I think the best way to do that is to have them work with you so they know what the expectations are. If you're just like, you're going to do this thing, and then you send them out, they're not going to do it the way that you want, and that's going to cause... That was my mistake quite a few times in a lot of things, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. So you can head that off by creating the system and an outline of what your expectations are, and leading through that by example by having them come with you as your apprentice. That's the way that I would recommend it, and that's the way that I eventually figured out how to do it.
I love that. So yes, what he was saying, the first part is when you're looking to delegate, if you can do trade deals, awesome. But for me, the only time that I was okay with bringing on more people is when I actually had money to pay them, because that's the kind of company I want to run. I want to pay professionals to be professional, or a value trade. If you know that we definitely do some trade deals. So he talked about kind of the bringing people on. This is something that my business coach helped me with. Is I'm going to kind of go through it fast. We'll have it for the video, so you guys can go back to it later on. The system for figuring out what to delegate is make a list of every single thing that you do for your company, for your whatever you're doing. Every single thing is driving, editing, producing, accounting, all this stuff that you do every day. Long the list as you can. Go through that. Just top of your head, rate them 1 to 10 on how much energy they give you or take away from you. You rate each one, then you have a list. So 7 through 10, things you know that you're amazing at and that give you energy that you love doing. 4 through 6 are decent, but you could get rid of them. The bottom is you have to delegate once you have the money. So for me, producing, accounting, answering emails, stuff that I am very good at and I've had to be, but now I have a producer, I have an accountant, and it's making the company run better because of that. So the way that you have to create that yourself to figure out, it's the whole, what gives you energy, what takes energy away from you. That's where the business coaching helped me.
That was awesome. I like that system.
Yeah,
I'm stealing that.
It might be IP, so I'm not sure.
No,
you put it out there.
I was given a very similar system, but instead you draw a box. So you draw 4 boxes, and in it you say, what do I love doing? What do I need to be doing? I can't. What should I get rid of straight away, and then what could be done without me? And the one I love doing category is a hard one, because sometimes the thing you love doing is not necessarily the thing you have to be doing, but if it's going to fulfill you as a person, as a business owner, then it can kind of stay in that box. The one you need to be doing is sort of where you as a creative or wherever you are involved, you have to be. The one that kind of you could delegate, but currently you're doing. For me, like for years, I've delegated it on and off to sort of family members and things. Like currently, my mum is packing orders because we just moved into a new house. The condition of this house was the storeroom is not coming to the house. It's now filling up my mum's dining room while we're waiting for a new. We're looking for a facility at the moment. So she's packing orders for me, and that is something that I can go and put on some music and just rock out and pack orders for hours. But it wastes a huge amount of time. It's one of those mundane jobs, because I can get in that zone, but definitely I have to delegate it. Stuff that I had to get rid of straight away was accounting. I'm not numbers minded. If I can't waste. Yeah, I can't do it. I get myself into a panic. I don't understand stuff. The first thing I did, I hired an accountant. I hired a bookkeeper, and they have changed my life. And now basically they contact me every so often and basically say, this is how much tax you have to pay. And I go, okay. But I don't see, they might be screwing me over, but hopefully not. But it's that kind of thing. It's like you have to look at yourself, recognize the stuff that you are bad at, and say that is the stuff that you want to get out of the door, or at least find mentorship to try and get better at. It's that balance. And the stuff that you're good at, the stuff that you love doing, you have to analyze whether or not you want to stay doing that or you could delegate it. I love filmmaking, but also I'm trying to help out other filmmakers. There's Johnston, who's involved with the brand. Some of the other guys are really into their filmmaking. And although I really enjoy it, and I will take up the opportunity when I need to, when I can, I also understand that the brand can survive without me spearheading the filmmaking side of it, and I can delegate to them while I kind of concentrate on stuff like the clothing. Because although I might not be the best at the clothing, and moving forward it is something that if I sort of cross paths with some incredible clothing designer who shares the same visions as me, because I'll have to always oversee stuff like that, but if that opportunity comes, then it'll probably end up being delegated. But at the moment, the clothing side of things is much more my forefront, and the filmmaking side is me trying to enable and trying to delegate. So you just have to really analyze yourself and break it down and split it up a bit.
It's when you're at the end of the line.
Thanks. I can't believe I actually have something to say. So Dylan Baker did a talk 2 years ago. Yeah, when I smashed my face and did a talk too. Yeah. So he said some really good things. I actually sat down with him afterwards too, and started implementing some of the things that he gave. And one of two of the most powerful things that have been helping me to delegate and when to delegate and why. The first thing is, it's as a business owner, it's better to work on your business than to work in your business. That for me, that just changed my whole perspective. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been working in my business so much more than I've been working on my business. So what it does is it kind of choke points, and you're busy work doing all these things that someone else can be doing, like what you're saying, and then the place where your business is going to be able to grow is kind of suffering. So it's important to realize that we're only one person, right? And I know I'm not trying to say the same things over and again, but realizing that you're one person and that it's okay to find those places to help. So the other thing is when it comes to lists, everybody has a different method, but my list is I write out everything that I need to do for the day, and I mean literally everything. And I usually do it before the week, so instead of per day writing lists, I have it on a Sunday night or whatever, or Monday morning, everything's written out, right? And then you put a 1, 2, or a 3 next to each thing, and it kind of gives it a numerical value. So 1, it has to be done today. If it is or it has to be done this week. It's a priority. It has to be done. If it doesn't get done, something happens that's not good, right? 2 is okay, I can get this done within the month. I can get this done this week. Maybe it's something you have to do at the end of the month. You might not have time to do it this week, so it can be pushed back a little bit, right? 3 is it doesn't matter if you do it within the next year. It's not going to add value to your business. It's just something you wanted to do. But it's something. threes, you just kind of like toss it out for the week. You have the list, so you know it's something you do, but you just kind of like toss it out as a priority for the week. You write down ones, only ones every day throughout the week, and then if you happen to have time after you're done with all your ones that day, go to a 2 or finish the ones from the other days. That way by the end of the week, you have your ones finished, then some of your 2s finished, and those 2s might carry over to be ones the next week, and then your 3s, if you have time and it's something like it's kind of essentially prioritizing. You're like, oh, the 3 actually didn't matter that much. So that's been a really useful system, and it kind of like I'm so thankful that Dylan showed me that, because it really has like made a difference in getting things done. And again to delegating, if you're as a unique business owner and what you're doing, you really only can do certain things that nobody else can do. And so those are the things that are working on the business. And so the more you can put energy and time into those things, the better off the business is going to be. The other things will get done and taken care of. And it's just kind of, it's finding the people around you that are willing to do those things and to help out with those things, and like providing some kind of collateral with them to make it work, whether it's monetary or something you can offer as a service, or sometimes you can buy volunteers for a while. But it's also important to get them compensation as quick as possible, because then they'll do it happily. Like, they'll already do it happily, but someone can only do something for so long for free, right? Eventually you're like, all right, that was fun. Like, we had a talk last night, like, it's been doing this for a long time free, that was a really good time, but I'm gonna go do something else where I can provide for myself and my family. So the faster, make as much money as possible as quick as you can, so that you can pay people to make their jobs faster and better and more accessible and more exciting, and then so on and so forth. And it just kind of like builds.
Real quick, piggyback on that for scheduling is for the on versus in your business. A good kind of starting point, another one that I got from Business Coach, was take at least 1 day per week to work on your business. And that's just kind of in your mindset, knowing, because then you don't forget about it, because you can kind of keep pushing it.
For me, are you talking big picture rather than like nuts and bolts?
I mean, it's internal stuff. It's
You should work in your business when you're starting. I think again, if you're doing something that if you're doing something that, if you're like, okay, I've never done this before, but you're gonna do it for me. Like, obviously, that's doing something. You wouldn't ask someone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. I think that's a really valuable thing as well. Sorry, reiterate your question.
Just the delineation between in business and on business, like they're fairly similar prepositions. So like, what's the a high end, like I'm creating the mission that the company is obviously on by the sound of it. Yeah. Like, what would be in the business then?
Okay. And I think it's going to be different for every business probably, but like from a gym standpoint, it's like coaching is working in the business. Like, I know that as a coach, I add a ton of value because of my experience in coaching, and I probably coach at the highest level because I've been doing it for the longest. But that doesn't always necessarily add more value than if I were working on the business with those hours. So you kind of like, it's kind of like, if it's something that there's a really good explanation for it, but it's basically if it's something that is a daily task that has to be done that someone else can do, that's working in the business. If it's something that you are doing to progress the value or progress the income and the flow and the revenue of the business, that's working on the business, especially if it's something that someone else can't do.
All right, so in the business is the product or service that you offer as the business. On the business is you making those more efficient and better.
Cool, thank you.
Even better.
I also think it's really important every once in a while, like to make it a priority, at least like say weekly, to work in your business. Because if you, I've had this problem before where I spent so much time focusing on trying to build the business and build it up that I had lost sight of what was going on in the culture with my coaches, with my students, with my other things, because I'm always in my office working on the computer. I never thought starting a gym I would spend 12 hours a day on a computer. So it's important to do both, but definitely since you are the leader, you are the one who has to work on the business. No one else is going to build your business for you, but you still have to keep a foot in the door to see what's going on, because you're kind of like the ship's captain. You need to sometimes like, this is one of your guys over here, And like you're trying to be like, guys, we need to go this way, and he's like going over here, and you gotta be like, whoa, hey buddy, let me just turn you out. We're going this way. Let me tell you what's going on over here. So it's important to get a little bit of both, I think.
Thank you.
I guess my question is, I guess it can apply to all of you. I want to know what processes you guys went through as far as, trademarking your intellectual property, like your logos, your names, and all that stuff. Because if you make a gym or brand or anything like that, if that stuff isn't protected, you're at risk. So what are the processes that you guys go through for that?
I think you guys are going to be way beyond where I am with this, so I'll be right back. I'm going to go pull a Giles again.
I'm so far beyond that I'm still actually I need to do that basically. It's on the list, and I really need to do that, and it is incredibly important. So I'm now going to listen to Noah. I have sort of taken some steps, but regarding trademarking logos, etc., it's definitely there. So please don't steal my stuff. just for now. Like give me when I get home in England, I'll sort it out.
So trademarking the logo specifically, I also haven't done that yet. but the first thing I did when going to start everything, and I'm guessing that everybody here has done it, is creating an LLC or creating a company, an actual company and brand legally, because that an LLC is a limited liability company or corporation. Anyway. Basically saves you from personally being responsible if somebody sues you. So they can only have access to what the company makes rather than what you personally have, so it won't ruin you. It's just kind of what you start with. There's C Corps, there's a bunch of different company styles you can kind of register as. We started as an LLC. Once you get bigger, you can kind of go into the corporation side of things, but it's very cheap. It's like $50. And one of the reasons that, again, I haven't done the trademark is it's more expensive. And 10K, he said. So I think none of us are at the point where it's viable to spend money on that right now. Eventually it will be, once hopefully we're going to break 6 figures this year, 7 figures in the next 5 years, then that's something that we can put money into.
You said it was 10K, Justin?
Yeah, trademark.
Yeah. So, when it comes to like copyright and trademarks, generally, the trademarks you can actually go look up online and it will show you if that trademark is already claimed. So if you look into, I forget the name of the site, but I'm pretty confident a Google search would bring it up. Or if you even go talk to a lawyer, generally that's usually what they pull up first to see if they even want to take you on as a client. But like when it comes to copyright, like say I want to get a curriculum copywritten underneath my trademark, underneath my brand, they can only copyright the documents that you actually have present on you. So you can't necessarily, in this day and age, really copyright an idea. You can only copyright and get whatever you present there. And then, and that process is pretty expensive. 10K is kind of a good ballpark range. And then anytime you want to make an additional thing to that, you're looking at that fee all over again. So it's not something you just like, let's go do this. Like, because the second you want to change one thing, like you really have to be mindful and future-proof. And in America, at a networker Michelle and I go to, there's this company called Legal Shield, and they also have another division too, Legal something, but it's like $200-300, and they will set up all that. The LLC, start working on that trademark stuff. So that's in the U.S. That's a really good outlet to go. And so like we just did the whole rebrand. So yeah, same kind of situations. Like I haven't really trademarked stuff yet, but it's also no one's really paying attention to the parkour side of things. So we got a little more time.
Hey there.
Who's gonna put 10K in to steal your thing?
I just want to jump on this before I go for a Giles again. I think in England it's a little bit cheaper actually, but I do know that every single category of trademarking, so like if I was to trademark sort of Motus within clothing, it's a fee. If I was to do it within shoes, it's a fee. So there's additional things that add up. But just to touch on like trademarking is one thing that it's on the list. I'm planning to do it this year, and it is, but it's not something you have to do straight away because you don't want to be paying out those fees day one of setting up your business. However, setting up your business as a business, I recommend doing pretty much straight away. Regarding like setting it up as an LLC in England with LTD, limited something, is very important, because the second you have money coming in and you've got kind of the tax man looking at you and things, you need to have all that clarified as to what you are, because otherwise you're just going to get screwed over. Like the tax man's going to go, oh, you're not this, blah, blah, blah. So if you're just looking at setting up a company, that's very easily Googleable. Like you can find out that, and it's fairly cost effective. It's fairly easy to do, and you can just get your company set up. Trademarking kind of comes a little bit later down the line as your brand starts to build presence, and there's the sort of threat of somebody potentially stealing it or you stepping on other people's toes and all of that. So I'm going to go and do a Giles.
Gotta trademark that. 10K.
So I feel like a lot of you have, I feel like you could argue every business kind of just fills a need, and that's why they're successful. But I feel like a lot of you have also looked at there's a need in the community, but I also want to improve upon the community. So would any of you argue, I guess, that, I feel like the community sees what you're doing, gets behind it, helps you build up your business, because that's kind of, where you're getting your income from, so on. But would any of you argue the community didn't really help my business, I had to do this myself? Like, I feel like it would be more on maybe like videography, where you really had to push yourself, but maybe more with like Vinnie or Justin, where their businesses were pushed forward by a community interested in it. I don't know if that made sense.
Hey. Yes, so you're absolutely I'll be short though. 100% for videography. Because it's not serving people specifically, it's not teaching kids, it's not doing that, it's providing a service that needs to be paid for kind of from client. And I did years of small single one-off parkour videos for people that I was getting $50 for. And that's okay short term, but again, that doesn't, $50 is not enough to pay rent. So there's only so much scalability with that kind of thing. Now I'll let the gym owners talk as well.
So it's different everywhere, I think, too, because cities are different. I mean, what your community is like when you start these businesses can be drastically different. Like for instance, where we were at, there wasn't really a parkour community. Like, in a weird way, like there's only maybe 10, 15 people that do parkour, and I mean, because I was off doing my own thing, so I wasn't like really growing the parkour community by like, hey, let's go train. But there was still people like Victor and a few other athletes in the area. So those people became the instructors. It wasn't like we started off and they became our clientele. They became the instructors to create clientele. So sometimes I'm sure in Justin will have kind of a different experience because of that gym shutting down. For us, we were creating a market, from nothing, pretty much. It was like, okay, we're not backed by the parkour community pushing it forward because there is no parkour community, really. There's only a few of us, and we're going to build it from the ground up. So it's not to say that now, if you were to start a business, that it wouldn't be the same way. I think it would be totally different now because, again, this was like 4 years ago, well, actually 5 years ago when we started this endeavor. So I'm sure nowadays it would be way easier to get a community to roll behind you and to build and to push that. But when we started, because there wasn't, at least for us in Grand Junction, there wasn't a large community. So it really was us doing it. And if that helps answer your question.
Yeah, a little bit. Second, just to like expound upon what you said, could you almost argue that like because you had no community, you kind of created your own community to support you later?
Yeah, I think so. And it's kind of weird how it develops. It's almost like it wasn't directly me that was creating it, right? I just kind of set the foundation. It's like, this is what I want to do. And then if someone else is like, oh, I want to do that too. And then it kind of just spreads and becomes organically what it is. And I know every gym has its own feel and every business has its own thing, and it all kind of comes down to the first person that started it, but it turns into something different. And yeah, so I guess it kind of does. It does create its own community once you start the process, and then in turn that community helps further the business. So maybe when it starts, it's not necessarily community based that's pushing it. It's a few individuals, which you could consider a community, I guess, and then it grows into a bigger community, which then in turn inherently pushes it forward.
Kind of
also,
like pushing a rock down a hill where it starts.
yeah,
going
just
faster
yeah,
and faster.
just gains momentum, and then it's you're going. Anyone else?
I think it's pretty much the same thing. At the end of the day, no matter what your community is, no one's going to care as much as you about your company. And whether you have 100 people behind you or 0 people behind you, if you don't do it, it's not going to happen. I was lucky enough to have a few people that came on board, but those people that came on board, they weren't there for the 2.5 years behind the scenes. They jumped on board when after 2.5 years and signing a lease that was putting me $180,000 in debt, then they were like, oh, you have a building? Oh, it's really happening? Oh, yeah, man, I thought this was so cool from the beginning. I'm going to totally jump in there. Now, that's not to knock on them, because if they had not helped me, that would have made my life a lot harder. My gym would not have been as successful or grown as quickly as it did without them. But not necessarily to toot my own horn, but it would not have happened at all without me. So I think that's the most important thing is, if you can, you just shouldn't 100% rely on these people, because they also have, it's from no fault of their own, they have their own lives, their own aspirations and stuff, and you're asking them to give up some of that free time and that stuff for perhaps no compensation at all to come and support you. But once you actually have the foundation there, and you have something to offer, and it's not just, hey guys, would you mind, giving up your next 800 Saturdays to come on down and help me build this thing? Once you get past that point and there's actually a thing there, the further you push it, the more and the further it gets along, the more people can see and the more willing they become to start putting their time and their energy in. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's kind of like, if a lot of us here will look at what Justin's built with Tranquil Movement. This is my first year here, and I'm like, this is so dope. So much so that I use the term dope. I feel like 17 again. So I would probably be willing to work with him or do a thing with him, right? But if I had shown up the first year, would I have felt the same? If I had never been here and Justin reached out to me, would I feel the same? Would I be willing to volunteer time, money, resources, coaches, expertise, whatever? Would I have been willing to sit on the panel? I don't know. But because he had already put in all that work, here we are. If Justin hadn't done that, would I be able to be here? Probably not. So at the end of the day, it's all coming down to you, girl.
So with that, exactly right. You're the one pushing it. You're the one driving it. I say that we have 5 or 6 kind of contractors now. That happened in the last 2 to 3 months. And we've been a company for 6 years. That was all me before that.
That's oh my god.
Yeah, and another important thing to keep in mind when you finally get your business off the ground, you'll hear this a lot when you start researching business and you start reading books on business. The 80-20 rule pops up all the time. Yeah, so that ties into really 80%. It's like. I'll explain in the context that I know it as, but because specifically to the community thing, right? So I know that it costs me 80% less time and resources to focus on retention. So, when you're talking about, did you have to create the community? Yes, I had to find a market within the global community and create an experience that people started to vibe with, and then zero in and focus on the people that come here, and those become my tribe, and those are the people that I continue to support. And also, thank and do the birthday messages, and because I'm like, if I focus on the people who have supported me in the early phases, and then they end up making up 80% of the people that register for next year, awesome. That means I have to spend only 20% of the time and resources to get new faces, reach out to the word of mouth, people who are kind of on the fence, and yeah. So in the early phases, it was very hard. It was a lot of phone calls, and a lot of begging, hey, come on out, please. And and obviously all of us have taken financial risk and hits of our own. The first 2 JumpFest cost me little over $2,000 the first year, and then $1,200-$1,400 the second year. So we didn't even break even until 2013. I don't know how. I guess that was like, that was the worst JumpFest to gym at the time, for sure. So if you came in 2013, thank you for sticking around. But, yeah. So, all right, one last question, because we are way over time, but I could seriously sit here all day. So. All right. Yes.
Was there any college experience needed to get where you guys are today?
Okay. Good question. Is there any college experience that was required to get you? Yeah, I have zero college experience at all. I went straight from high school, signed a contract with WFPF, and was traveling right out the gate. And I'm very lucky to find business mentors that took me under their wing and said, hey, generally here's the syllabus, here's the books that they will require you to read. You can read those, you can obtain that same information, you just won't have the degree at the end of the time. And I was lucky to start this pursuit at 20, so yeah, I'd say the learning curve was really high, and it took a lot of integrity and discipline on my part to get to that understanding. But networking has been my biggest teacher in the way that I've been able to convince the world that I know what I'm doing, and I'm prepared to fight the good fight.
I would argue no. I went to school, got an engineering degree. So obviously I'm not engineering. I'm running a parkour gym. But I do think that there are things, depending on what you're going to school for, that you can learn. First off is it's going to teach you a lot more maturity. When you're in high school, it's because you have to go to high school. When you're in college, no one's going to make you go to classes. No one's going to make you study. No one's going to make that. If you flunk out, they don't care. You've already paid. Your teacher doesn't care if you show up or not. So it is good to have something that you have to do for you and you have to push through. For me, I was very lucky in the fact that getting an engineering degree helped me to build the gym, because we built our own gym. We didn't hire any contractors. We didn't bring anybody in. Myself and a few members of my community, we lived inside of a shell of a building for 2 months, and we built ourselves a gym. Man, I think the biggest thing that I took away from college was learning to buckle down and to research. Especially in engineering, you have to research systems. And if you want to own your own business, you've heard a lot of these guys right? They'll be like, hey, I had to number these things. I have to create this list. I have to figure out this thing. All of these guys, all of us have our own systems in place for how we do our business. And I guarantee none of those systems are the systems we started with. They've evolved over time, right? They've gotten a lot better as we've gotten more experience. So you may not necessarily need to go to college, but you need to continually be learning. And every time you think you know something, you have to go back and then you have to refine that thing. And you have to refine that thing and you have to test it and then you have to refine it again. Then you got to get some feedback and then you got to refine it again. So maybe not necessarily college, but you got to be learning all the time, reading, making new connections, learning from people, all that kind of stuff.
So I'm going to make a statement on this because I feel very strongly about it, and I could actually do a whole probably lecture on this. As a creative specifically, it's an adamant no. Do not go to school, because there are online learning platforms that can teach you the same thing for a fraction of the cost and go start making stuff. I have never been asked. I'm technically not graduated yet. I went to film school, which is why I strongly believe you shouldn't go to film school. So I can go way deep into this. Come talk to me afterwards if you guys want to know. That is a fantastic example of why not to go to film school. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I didn't go to college, university. The only thing I've done kind of since being 18 was a couple of years ago. I did like a really short online course that was specific to kind of building a business within a streetwear market, just because it's very easy to build it's not very easy to build a business within parkour, but it's easy to kind of tap into this niche because we're surrounded by our friends and things, and it's easy to feel like we're getting a response from people very close to us. But I was trying to look at things as a view to potentially expanding outside of the parkour community, making clothing that would sort of be appreciated by people outside of parkour. So I did a lot of research there, and that's basically the only kind of extra work I've done, aside from, as everyone else has said, just tons and tons of learning, research, looking at my mistakes, and you will just pick up things along the way that if you just have a look at them, just try and implement them into your life and the way you stay productive and stuff like this. My only thought about sort of the film school thing is, I know many people who've been to film school. The majority are in the same boat as us, and they don't kind of agree with it. I do know a group of guys who went, and I don't know if this was just because they had sort of good family connections and essentially money, but they went in, they got like, they basically got set up by their parents, put in this huge house, they were all living together, they bought a red straight up, like first year of university. They instantly got very close to their lecturer, who was quite well connected, and by the time they'd left uni, they were working for one of the biggest movie studios in London, and the guy I know closely is like working as a DIT on huge films. He's doing second camera ops and things, because he just like, if you have the right connections and you think that university might help you sort of get closer to those connections, then it can really be an asset. But I wouldn't recommend going to university as like a, I hope it's going to work. Like, I've kind of got an idea that I want to do this, but I'm not really sure. Like, I think if you're going to go through the university route, especially in a creative field, you want to be like, this is my path and I know what I want. Because you might, I know if I'd have gone to university, I would have just flapped around. And I mean, you said it taught you to knuckle down and things, but I feel like it probably would have done the opposite for me, because I just had no idea what I wanted to do apart from film and do parkour. And I think that wasn't, it wasn't sort of concise enough to really get put in a direction through university.
End of the line is great. Yeah. Just to clarify, if you want to be a doctor, you should probably go to college.
Like YouTube, man.
Yeah,
YouTube, right?
yeah, just YouTube. You'd be good. Yeah. No, I actually, for me, because when I was in high school and I was in the hospital so much, I like missed so much school. I missed like the first 2 weeks of my junior year, and I had advanced placement classes, and it just kind of screwed me over for the entire year. And like halfway through my junior year, I was like, I just need to do homeschool because I'm gone so much. I need to be able to be invested in it. My credits didn't transfer, did that whole semester. Nothing worked out, and it was pretty much like, you have to take an extra year and a half of high school if you want to graduate. And I was like, bye. So I immediately got my GED, aced it all, and then just started doing parkour. So pretty much like, I don't recommend that route for anybody, but I think it was kind of a special case. Like and then for additional education, it wasn't like, yeah, I'm going to go to college now and do the same thing over and get sick and waste all my money. So it was kind of, for me, again, it's just furthering my education in as many ways and outlets as possible. And there's honestly, like, again, when it comes to starting a business, when it comes to creative content, when it comes to those kind of things, there is so much information out there. So many intelligent people who have done different things, and they give the information freely, and you can find it, I mean, in overwhelming, disgusting amounts if you go looking for it. So, that's where the information comes from for me. Just learn.
I have a website for all
Do
that.
you want me to tell them?
Yes.
Chinese whispers.
Write this down if you guys are interested in further education in terms of all the stuff we've been talking about. CreativeLive.com. CreativeLive, Live.com. It has business courses, it has art courses, it has personal development courses, everything ranging from $15 to $150, which is still a fraction of what college costs. You can dive deep down into that for hours and hours of content. CreativeLive.com. We'll put the link in the video.
I'm writing that down too.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I'll just kind of wrap this up with just a fun little parable, and then we'll get out of here for the day. So there's this fun story of two separate families that are thinking about moving to this new town. The first family rolls up in the car, and they stop at a gas station. They ask the gas clerk, hey, my family are thinking about moving here. What kind of people live here? And the gas clerk says, well, what kind of people live where you currently live? Oh, our neighbors are so loud, they're obnoxious, they're not friendly, they don't talk to us, and so we generally kind of keep to ourselves. And then the gas clerk goes, yep, it's the type of people we have here. The second family rolls up, same gas station, same gas clerk, asks the exact same question. Hey, we're thinking about moving here. What kind of people live here? Oh, no, tell me about what kind of people live back at your house. Oh my God, our neighbors are so friendly. We trust them with our lives. Like, we have meetups. We're constantly just exchanging ideas and thriving in our community. Yep, that's the type of people we have here. So the moral of the story is whatever you are looking for is exactly what you are going to find. So just in any aspect of anything, business, life, if you're not working on the mental fortitude and that optimism, and even when it gets hard, see it's half full rather than half empty, you will be vastly more successful in whatever you're pursuing than just saying, well, woe is me, because we all have a million cards in our deck that are shit. And yeah, but it's learning when to fold and when to go all in. Because yeah, you might have some twos in there, So cool. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed.